All right, this is a
Recording in progress.
regularly scheduled meeting of the Public Facilities Committee. And present at the beginning of the meeting are Councillor Getz from Ward 5, Councillor Kelly from Ward 3, Councillor Danberg from Ward 6, President Laredo from Ward 7, Councillor Leary from Ward 1, and also the Vice Chair and myself, Susan Albright from Ward 2. And online from the committee, we have David Kalis from Ward 8 and Councillor Gentile from Ward 4. And I think that's it for the, are we 100%? I will, is that it for the committee?
Becky doesn't.
Yeah. And we have Councillor Grossman, Chair of the Public Safety Committee, who's with us. And I don't know if the rest of your committee will join us, but we'll announce them when they come.
Yeah,
Who else do we have?
Councillor Block and Councillor Bright.
Okay, so Councillor Block from Ward 4 and Councillor Wright from Ward 3 have joined us as well. And Barney Heath from, what ward are you from? Director of Planning, and we have our first, and I think I'll introduce the rest of folks as the elements come up, if that's okay. So we have first on the agenda, let me read it into the record. Requesting approval of the Walk, Roll, Ride, Bike Network Plan. Your Honor, the Mayor requesting approval of the Walk, Roll, and Bike Network Plan as part of the city's comprehensive plan. And joining us is Jen Martin, who will walk us through plan.
Would you like me to sit here or here?
Well, if you sit there, so that the camera can see you for the folks, otherwise they'll see the back of your head.
See the screen.
Councilor Bixby has also joined us from Ward 6, and I forgot to announce that Lisa Pennell is our very able committee clerk. So Jen, whenever you're ready.
Okay, I have some slides. And presentation mode here. Just a second. Yeah.
Let's pick me. No, not well. That was me.
About your email.
Yes, right.
Okay, are we set?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, councilors. I'm Jen Martin, the Director of Transportation Planning. And I'm here tonight on behalf of the Planning and Development Department and the Department of Public Works. I'd like to recognize Jeannie Fairley, our ADA coordinator, who's on Zoom, as well as Barney Heath, our Director of Planning and Development, Bernie McDonald, and Commissioner Shauna Sullivan. We're also here and we're part of the development of this plan. Tonight, I'm presenting the Walk, Roll, and Bike Network Plan, Newton's first coordinated framework for creating safer, more connected, and more efficient streets. The plan is available online as an interactive website story map at newtonma.gov/bikepedplan. It's also on the website as a screen reader friendly version that's a Word document. The Walk, Roll, and Bike Network Plan provides the roadmap for how Newton will plan, prioritize, and deliver multimodal improvements. It establishes a citywide network map for walking, rolling, and biking. It sets a prioritization framework based on safety, demand, balance, and feasibility. It lays out consistent design and policy guidance to ensure all projects meet the same standards. It coordinates implementation across departments and funding streams, and it tracks progress annually for transparency and accountability. Together, these elements ensure that every investment moves Newton toward a connected, safe, and accessible transportation system. The plan lays out how we build. Sidewalks, crossing, and bicycle facilities are currently delivered through a wide range of programs. Those include road repaving, capital improvement plan projects, 311 sidewalk and curb ramp requests, and sidewalk requirements under Ordinance B42 for new construction. We also have had opportunities to build out our pedestrian and bicycle network through special and comprehensive permit, Mass DOT and DCR projects, grant-funded initiatives such as Shared Streets, Complete Streets, and Safe Routes to School funding opportunities, and one-time funding such as ARPA funds. This plan aligns every program and funding source so we can design once and build once, saving time and stretching each dollar further and work towards the vision of a network that the plan lays out. The walk, roll, and bike network plan does not replace our existing policies, it puts them into action. It advances the city's longstanding commitments to climate action, accessibility, and complete streets, and reinforces the goals of the Open Space and Recreation Plan, the Climate Action Plan, the ADA Transition Plan, and other policies and planning efforts that are shown here on this slide. It ensures we are following the Newton Street Design Guide and follow the Complete Streets policy. The walk, roll, and bike network plan is our practical roadmap that connects these commitments to on-the-ground results. Community input shaped every part of this work. Outreach included an initial public meeting in June 2023, meeting with stakeholder groups like the Commission on Disability and Safe Routes to School, and public feedback on where people are trying to go and the specific barriers to walking, rolling, and biking to get them there. Through an online interactive map and emails, residents shared more than 2,400 comments from every village in Newton. These are heat maps showing the concentration of comments for a given area, with the walking and rolling comments on the left and the bicycling comments on the right. Comments related to walking and rolling focused on specific concerns like vehicle speeds, drivers not yielding at crossings, lack of curb ramps, insufficient or unsafe crossings, discontinuous sidewalks, overgrown vegetation, snow and ice concerns, pedestrian signal timing, and insufficient lighting. Comments on bicycling were more corridor focused, as you can see with the orange lines on the map, along many of our busier streets. Cyclists also noted similar concerns that we hear from drivers, such as poor pavement conditions, high vehicle speeds, and limited options to safely cross Mass DOT's I-90, I-95, and Route 9. They also share concerns about conflicts with turning vehicles at intersections, bike lanes stopping and starting, and a lack of wayfinding to navigate the routes that we already have. In addition to the public meeting, the online survey tool, and meetings with stakeholder groups, the process was also guided by an advisory group made up of residents, advocates, city councilors, and city and school staff. This group met multiple times, including a site walk, to ensure that the plan reflects both technical analysis and lived experience. The feedback of the advisory group was invaluable in balancing citywide priorities with local needs. So thank you to all those who served as part of this group. The existing conditions analysis that we undertook documented Newton's current sidewalk conditions, existing curb ramps and bicycle facilities, as well as travel generators like schools and village centers, vulnerable road user crashes, speed limits, road classifications, and land use patterns. The 16 small maps that you see here are included in the online interactive story map. You can zoom in to a specific area for each one of those maps when you go to the website. The existing conditions analysis gives us a clear picture of where people can already travel safely and where significant gaps remain in sidewalks, crossings, and bike connections. We found that while some corridors are already well connected, many neighborhoods have missing links that make short trips to schools, parks, village centers, and transit more challenging without a motor vehicle. In addition, higher vehicle speeds make walking, rolling, and biking less comfortable and increase the likelihood and severity of a crash if one does occur. The bicycle level of traffic stress analysis helps us understand how Newton streets feel for people biking, not just whether a bike lane exists, but how comfortable and safe it feels to ride there. Each street segment in this analysis is rated from low stress to high stress, depending on traffic speed, traffic volume, roadway width, and type of bicycle facility. Low stress routes are comfortable for most riders, including families and casual cyclists. You can see that the low stress routes are many of our residential streets and neighborhoods. High stress routes are typically those with faster moving traffic or limited, if any, separation between people biking and walking, people biking and driving. So that includes many of our main corridors that crisscross the city, our streets like Beacon Street, Walnut Street, et cetera. This map makes it easy to see where Newton's network already works well and where new facilities may be needed to close gaps and create safe, continuous routes. From that foundation of existing conditions and public outreach, the plan established 6 guiding goals. Goal number 1, enhance safety and comfort. We're prioritizing corridors with elevated crash rates and using traffic calming and signal improvements to reduce conflict points and make active travel feel safer and more predictable. Goal number 2, connect people to key destinations. The network focuses on connecting residents to the places they go most: schools, parks, villages, and transit, through routes that are comfortable and low stress. Goal number 3, build out a core active transportation network. We identified a connected backbone of shared use paths, separated bike lanes, and local connectors that make biking a reliable everyday mode of travel. Goal number 4, manage speeds to support safety. Speed is one of the strongest predictors of crash severity. The plan emphasizes street designs and operational strategies that manage speeds where people walk, roll, and bike the most, especially near our schools. Goal number 5, advance accessibility for all users. Every improvement must work for everyone, from a parent with a stroller to an older adult using a mobility device. This means consistent ADA compliant sidewalks, curb ramps, and crossings citywide. Goal number 6, encourage a shift towards active modes of travel. As we make streets safer and more comfortable, we'll see more people choosing to walk, roll, or bike. Visible improvements and consistent design build public confidence and help normalize active travel. And finally, presenting the networks. The plan lays out 2 complementary networks: the walk and roll network on the left and the bike network. Both are built from our shared outreach and our shared existing conditions analysis and our coordinated priorities and goals. Together, they form the framework for how we will improve sidewalks, crossings, and bicycle routes citywide. The pedestrian map on the left is a heat map based on the pedestrian generators, so places like schools, parks, village centers, libraries, and transit stops. It illustrates both where people are already walking or rolling and where people may want to walk and roll. And it helps us focus investments in the areas with the greatest activity and need. The bike network map lays out a connected system of routes across Newton, linking villages, schools, and major destinations. It enables people to travel comfortably within Newton and to connect seamlessly with our neighboring communities. The bike network vision is designed so residents can ride in all directions across the city, using routes that feel safe and predictable. Newton's capital improvement plan and transportation network improvement plan lay out some of the walk and roll network work that will happen in the next 5 years. The capital improvement plan includes areas of focus for sidewalk work centered around public buildings and schools. These are the blue circles on the map and probably are familiar from the CIP. Sidewalks in these blue circles are replaced, repaired, or added to create continuous connected routes each year. These are the the map itself shows the sidewalk conditions. It's a little bit hard to see on the screen. Green is good, and then ranging to orange, and then on to red. In addition, the Department of Public Works assesses sidewalk corridors and curb ramps for replacement, repair, or addition for certain roadway treatments, including milling and paving. These upcoming corridors are included in the map on the right. And of course, priorities may shift from year to year depending on other things like utility work. This coordination ensures that every new sidewalk or curb ramp is another step towards a complete and accessible network. The bike network map lays out the vision for biking in Newton. Green indicates what is built already. Bicycle facility type will depend on each street's width, traffic speed, traffic volume, parking usage and needs, and surrounding uses, making sure the design works well for everyone. We have some opportunities to retrofit bicycle facilities onto roadways to add bicycle facilities as part of routine repaving and pavement marking projects, and to improve facilities that are already built. Well-planned bicycle facilities make streets more predictable, better organized, and safer, not only for people walking, but also for those, or not only for people biking, but also for those driving, walking, and rolling. The Walk, Roll, and Bike Network Plan will serve as the city's roadmap for implementing improvements across all programs and projects moving forward. It ensures that walking, rolling, and biking upgrades are built into every stage of project delivery, from early design through construction. As the city repaves streets, advances capital work, or reviews private development projects, this plan provides the framework to guide those decisions. It helps determine where improvements are most needed, what design treatments are appropriate, and how departments coordinate to achieve consistent, high-quality results. Plan also makes implementation better, more proactive, data-driven, and predictable. It helps the city align staff and funding, apply for grants strategically, and track progress year after year. In short, it turns planning into practice and keeps Newton on course toward a safer, more connected transportation network. Tonight's request is for City Council to adopt the Walk, Roll, and Bike Network Plan as part of Newton's comprehensive plan. Formal adoption embeds safe, connected, accessible mobility as city policy. It provides consistent guidance across departments and projects. It improves coordination, efficiency, and funding readiness, and enhances eligibility for state, federal, and foundation funding. It also leverages outside dollars to extend local investments. Finally, it establishes a framework for smarter long-term spending with no new appropriation today. Thank you for your partnership and continued commitment to safer, more connected streets. This plan represents the work of residents, staff, and community partners, all focused on creating a Newton where every resident can move safely and comfortably however they travel. This photo is from a few weeks ago. AARP hosted a walk audit in Newtonville, which a number of us were fortunate to be able to attend.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add a sort of, it's not walk, ride, roll, but so Jen is the data on the Washington Street pilot. And assuming we have a second meeting in December, the idea is that the data will be analyzed and presentable by then. So if we can have a second meeting in December, she can come back and tell us how it's going. And that would come later, but that's an actual piece of this that you have already done. So we'd hear about it then. So questions? Well, first, Councilor Danberg, and yeah, I got it. Okay. Oh, can I just say that we've been joined by Councilors Lucas and Downs, and Ginny Fairley is here, who's our accessibility director. I don't know if I have that right, Ginny, right title. We have Jonathan Yo, who's our COO, and I really should announce that Commissioner Sullivan is here as well, because DPW is part of this, all his work. Okay, Councilor Danberg.
Thank you. Jen, first of all, thank you for being here, for presenting this very informative presentation, and for all the work that you've done over the years. And it's been many years that you've been working on this, and I've been following you, and I know a lot of us, most of us have been watching your work very carefully and are very proud of what you've done. My question, I think, would be, we've come a long way since that first bike path in Ward 6 on Beacon Street in Newton Center. What might you have learned that over the years, and as you have done more and more in this project, what have you learned that has helped you to make this project better?
Well, the interesting thing about Beacon Street is it really shows that if you build bicycle facilities, people will use them. So you're out there at all times of day, people are biking to work. On the weekends, you see young people biking in that area. We see kids biking towards schools on Beacon Street. And the next step for projects like that is to fill in some of the gaps. And we've been able to make slow improvements over time. And then also to keep an eye on our crashes, because unfortunately, as more people bicycle in certain areas, we do see higher crashes. And so to make sure we're evaluating those crashes and seeing how we can make improvements from that. Also, how important public outreach and feedback is on that. I don't remember if there was one public meeting or 2 public meetings, but making sure that the public knew what was coming, was supportive of it. And we had a lot of feedback on that, which was very helpful. I think we do have opportunities to make sure that we continue to provide education about corridors like that as well. We get a lot of questions about how do we go through, you're on Beacon Street and you're biking, how do we get through and across Walnut Street? So making sure that we provide education or a plan to get through these short segments that we need to complete in the future, or slowing down traffic in areas where bicyclists need to merge in.
Great. Thank you very much for those comments, Jen, and continue, and please keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
So I'm going to echo Councilor Danberg. I really want to thank you for putting together a very comprehensive plan here. It's very thoughtful. A few questions / observations. I think it would be very helpful going forward if we on any kind of major street, any kind of significant improvement, if we are accurately measuring where we are now, how many cyclists we have, whatever data is there, measure it. Let us know what you think is going to happen with the improvement. And then in periods of time after the improvement is implemented, see what's actually happening. For example, if the idea is on Beacon Street to increase bike ridership along a stretch of Beacon Street, it'd be very helpful to know where were we when we started, what was the expectation with the improvement, did we get there? And if not, why not, and what else might need to be done? I'm always personally very cautious of anecdotal evidence when it comes to this kind of stuff, and I think we will do much better if we actually really measure. And if we're wrong, fine, then maybe we need to do something different. But I think the measurement and the expectation is really important. I'm very appreciative of the idea that we don't want people racing through our streets. Part of the problem that we have with people racing through the streets is the frustration they get at our various traffic intersections when they're driving, but that is related to bike safety when they sit at 2, 3, 4, 5 light cycles to get through. So I'd be curious as to what your plans are going forward to try to help with that, because in turn, I think that will lead to better driver behavior and actually make it safer for cyclists. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on that.
So let me start with the data collection. So we don't have equipment in-house to be able to count cyclists. So we have to, like for the Washington Street pilot, we're paying Boston Traffic Data to collect that data, and it's quite expensive.
What does it cost to get the equipment?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
I think it'd be worthwhile getting and finding out, because we're gonna hopefully do that in multiple places.
Yeah, so we'd have to own our own equipment and then also make sure we have the staff to be able to do that data collection and analyze it, which seems like something that could be possible. I defer to Commissioner Sullivan for that. It would be DCW staff that would need to do those bicycle counts. I think it's a great idea. It would be great to know how many people are using our bicycle facilities. Some of the changes that we make are more about safety and less about increasing the number of cyclists in that facility. So being clear about our expectations when we make a road change. Is it to increase safety in that particular area? Is it to get more people bicycling? Is it to get more people off the sidewalk and into the bicycle facility, or out of the travel lane and into the bicycle facility? We know what we're doing when we make these changes and what our goals are with that. We can be more upfront about that.
So I just say, whatever the goal, I understand certainly the goal will change depending on the project, but you got to be able to measure success. And that's the exact same thing with the Washington Street pilot. How many people were biking there when we started? How many people are biking there now? What was our expectation? Was the expectation met or not? And again, I don't know any other way to measure improvement other than by gathering data. And by the way, the data that you measure may change depending on what the goal is. You know, if the goal is to reduce crashes, for example, you might do crash data on a certain area. Just putting that out there as a thought.
Yeah, and we carefully keep track of bicycle crashes, pedestrian crashes, vulnerable road user crashes. That's all available publicly on the Mass DOT website. So that's something that's very trackable over time. Of course, again, as the number of cyclists using an area increase, sometimes we see crash rates increase, even though the percent of people bicycling hit decreases.
But that would, again, if I could just respond to that, that would, by definition, that's easy to figure out. If you've doubled the number of cyclists, but your accident rate only increases 10%,
Yes.
you've actually reduced the accident
Exactly. But
level.
we need to be able to count the cyclists, as you were saying, in order to know the denominator.
I don't know how we demonstrate success if we can't do that.
We would love to count the cyclists.
So
We
I
should definitely look
just
into
think
that.
going forward, as we implement, I'm really concerned with this because I want to make sure that whatever we do is cost effective. And I think we need to be able to, it's like any scientific experiment, what do you think you're gonna get with your hypothesis? And then what does the data show? And then you analyze that data.
And then your second question about improving efficiency of our traffic signals and roadways. Certainly having distinct facilities for pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers is very helpful. You don't then have cyclists merging in, slowing traffic down. You don't have them up on the sidewalk using the pedestrian signal, which is what we see at a lot of our intersections is bicyclists are on the sidewalk or have to merge into traffic, which slows down vehicle speeds. So as we redesign our intersections, making sure that they work for everyone, that will make a big difference.
My question though is a little bit different. I think we get part of the driver, I don't want to say road rage, but driver impatience, which in turn leads to bad driving, is because people feel like they get backed up, then they go through an intersection, they park their way half to an intersection, it becomes more dangerous for everybody. I'm wondering what steps we're taking to address that.
Related to bicycles and pedestrians?
Everything. I mean, if there's a red light, the bike, at least theoretically, shouldn't be going through the red light. So we want more predictability so we don't have that kind of back.
Yes, I mean, bicyclists should be stopping at red lights.
Okay, I appreciate it. This is very helpful. I think this is a really good, yeah, I'm very glad you did this. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Counselor Leary, then Counselor Downs.
Thank you very much. So I have been looking forward to this plan coming before this committee for a long time, and I really enjoyed going through it, looking at the maps. I found it really helpful. I saw how it was really well coordinated with other city priorities and projects. And I thought you did a great job in being inclusive and getting a lot of representation to add to this comprehensive plan. So that being said, there's a couple of things. One of them is I am a big, I am a bicyclist, and I'm very supportive of the bike intersections. And the Washington Street pilot, I think, is going really, really well. One of the things I noticed that Ward 1, particularly in on Nantucket corner, we have a lot of the gaps. We
Yes.
have a lot, we're the biggest heat island. So for me, I find that Ward 1 is a real priority for closing those gaps, for making those bike connections. And I know that they're not going to be easy to do. I'm thinking of the intersection of Bridge Street and California Street, for example. Of course, the circle is also another difficult one. I'd love to see a way that we can incorporate bike safety in particular along California Street and Watertown Street, which are not as wide as Washington Street. The one great thing about Washington Street is that you had a lot to work with on that. I wanted to also just comment on the bad driving that President Laredo said. For me, a lot of that bad driving is speed.
Mhm.
And it's not just frustration with stopping at lights, it's people go too fast. And the one thing I noticed with the Washington Street pilot, it is anecdotal, is that people are forced to slow down. And the data shows that when you design streets for all users, that's what you get. People feel comfortably going into speed that the road offers, and Washington Street, that section was just you could go 50 miles an hour down there, no problem. Especially when there was nothing built on one side of it. So I think that's a great, the other thing I wanted to talk about, I know you prioritize schools, we have a lot of schools in Ward 1 now too, including a brand new one. So I just want to make sure that we're thinking about those areas too, as in our future plans. And then the other thing is one of the biggest barriers, I think, is to our bike networks is funding. And I know funding has always been tight. It's always been tied into our public DPW plans for doing traffic calming. So that's one thing I'd like to learn more about how we can prioritize funding, because I do think it benefits everybody, including drivers. You have, more people walking and biking. And there was one other thing you talked about was the comfort of bicyclists on streets. And the majority of people were never comfortable riding on Washington Street. And that includes me, and I'm a fairly confident cyclist. I've gotten a lot more confident on my e-bike because I can go the speed limit in Newton on my, 20 miles an hour, 25 miles per hour on those broad streets. But I think that's so important to highlight, and you will get more people biking and walking, and families biking and walking along areas where we do the separated bike lanes. And I think it's really important that we do get that data that shows that. And I also agree with Councilor Laredo that data is really important for us and will guide us in the future. So those are my comments, questions, and asks.
Okay, let me start with the comment about people being more comfortable. The other thing that we noticed with kids biking to school is that the more kids who biked, the more it normalized biking, and thus people wanted to bike. And I feel like we saw that under COVID as I was doing various outreach, you talk to people who are like, well, yeah, lots of people bike, or I moved here and people bike in Newton, which was such a mindset shift, I feel like, from before COVID. I wanted to touch on what you were saying about the bicycle funding. The best and cheapest way for us to integrate bicycle facilities is as part of the road repaving and pavement marking program. A few bicycle symbols and some green paint doesn't cost very much if we can get out in front of the pavement plan, so we know when the pavement markings will be done. So we've done the work so that we're ready to implement bicycle lane pavement markings at the time that the city is doing them anyway as part of road repaving. And we've had some success with that. We had Adrian Ayala, one of our traffic engineers, was very good at pulling together plans quickly. So for example, Homer Street, I don't know if any of you bike to City Hall, but there's a new bicycle facility without removing parking on Homer that we were able to squeeze in there. And I regularly see people biking in that, including myself, which is great when we can figure out, and Walnut Street too, we were able to add a left turn lane and then improve the visibility of those bicycle facilities, which were already there. And that is quite inexpensive when we're repaving. And then in terms of Ward 1, we have two projects going in Newton Corner. Well, we have the project that we just completed. These are Mass DOT projects, which was the new traffic signal, which really didn't improve bicycle operations. But there's a midterm project that's a conceptual design that Mass DOT led. So that plan is out there and maybe at some point will be funded and implemented. And then the City of Newton and other stakeholders, maybe you as well, I don't remember, are part of the long-term Newton Corner planning process, which is really focused on rethinking all of Newton Corner. So both the midterm plan and the long-term plan are looking at how to improve the facilities there for walking and biking and make it work better for drivers too.
I did see some of the designs that had bike lanes in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Bridge in California you called out. That is a design that not just Newton, but the whole region is very interested in fixing. We continue to look for funding opportunities to improve that connection, which is a Charles River Trail connection. We hear reports about there being so many people waiting to cross that they spill over into the street, which slows down traffic operations as well. There's a lot of interest, and hopefully someone will want to fund us to be able to improve that connection.
Jen, we've tried twice, right?
Yes, we just
Continue to try.
yeah.
On this one, we've struck out twice in a row, but we're gonna, I think administration should keep trying it for that intersection to improve it.
Yeah, that is a wonderful path, the Charles River path.
We learned this week that we were not the recipients of a Mass Trails grant to improve that
Oh.
connection in particular, which was unfortunate.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, Counselor Downs and Counselor Block.
Hi, and I'm not gonna I'll be brief, but I think this is a wonderful step forward. And congratulations on getting us to this point. It is a tremendous amount of work. I think that we already look at crash data and we can already gather speed data. I'd love to be able to see us able to measure bicycle and pedestrian data. And I think that a big part of that is normalizing what we were able to do when we had a fully staffed transportation division that after they did a traffic calming project, measured how that affected speeds, which is something we can measure. And then TAG was measuring how much how much of an effect it had on crashes, which is huge. And I have no other questions on this, but I did want to give you my kudos. I hope we can get this passed.
Thank you. Counselor Block?
Thank you very much. You hear me okay?
Yep.
This is a really impressive presentation, and I thank you, Jen, for that. I was wondering, though, as I've read this a little bit before and was looking at sort of how you went about doing this, the advisory group that you mentioned at the very beginning seemed to be missing a stakeholder. And this may seem like an odd observation, so I am interested in your thoughts about it. But the stakeholder that I'm thinking about are vehicle drivers. And the reason I think of them as a stakeholder is that for some of the projects that you've described, there's limited streetscape for us to work with. We're kind of stuck with what we have. The curbs and various other facilities probably don't compete with any other usage, but separated bike lanes do. And what I worry a little bit about with this project is that that we haven't taken as fully into account the vehicular impact of some of these changes. And while I appreciate Councillor Leary's comment that Washington Street, from her point of view, is a great success, what I see is a different story. I see the bicyclists writing us and saying it's a great success, and I'm sure it is safer for them. And I see a lot of frustration from car drivers. And a lot of that has to do with all sorts of things. But again, I'm just curious whether you think there's any substance to my concern.
Yeah, I'm happy to address that. And first of all, let me say that this plan does not lay out specific projects. So we will still go through the full public process that we always go through for a project like Washington Street. We had public meetings for both the Parker Street bike lanes and the Washington Street bike lanes. DCR and Mass DOT have public meetings, required public hearings, in fact, for their projects as well. So the benefit to the drivers in this are that drivers benefit from more orderly traffic flow and then clear routes for pedestrians and cyclists, which lead to fewer expected slowdowns. I would also note that of the people on the advisory group, almost all of us are also drivers. So with a few exceptions, most of the people involved also understand as drivers in Newton that we need to make sure our projects work for everyone. I don't know if that addresses part of the project or part of your concerns.
I suppose. I mean, I'm not at these meetings, so I can't evaluate them and the dynamics. Part of my experience has to do with the carriageway project on Com Ave. And I, as the Ward 4 counselor, people come to me with all sorts of complaints about that, including cyclists who feel that the traffic calming islands have narrowed the streets so much that cars can't pass them safely. And they feel in jeopardy, and the drivers aren't happy. And it's a Mass DOT, at least construction project, although the city was part of the approval process. And something didn't go well enough with that project design, at least in retrospect. I'm not saying there weren't public hearings or that all the procedures that are supposed to be followed weren't. I'm sure they were, and I wasn't an elected official when this all got approved. But there's something that's not quite matching up, it seems to me, with the design and the actual usage. So that's I've had enough comment now, and I'll turn it back to you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you raising that one in particular because I was out there today. There is, in the last week, the binder course went down on the separated bicycle trail. So up until this point, the bicyclists have all been sharing the road or on the new sidewalk. There wasn't a separate facility for bicyclists. I know some of the faster riders like to stay in the road with traffic, even when there is a separate bicycle facility. But in a few weeks, by early November, that project, the paving will be wrapping up. But it was great to be out there today over by the Marriott and watch actually a spandex cyclist come down the newly binder coursed, somewhat paved wide bicycle lane that's separate from the pedestrian facility. So I would encourage all of us to wait to see how it works in the final condition. And then of course right now it ends at the Marriott and we need to wait for that next Mass DOT project to complete what will eventually be a shared use path bicycle facility that takes us all the way through Weston. So some of it is being patient as we implement these projects. A lot of the concerns that we heard about Washington Street were concerns about the construction itself that we were then able to address by the end of the construction period. Certainly we continue to welcome comments on all these projects and how they work for Newton residents and others from other communities.
You're absolutely right that this is not a completed project. I will say this, we're really lucky there hasn't been a major crash along this construction project. It had nothing to do with bicyclists. It had everything to do with vehicles and poor signage and changing in the road patterns. And one of the things that I've learned in my 2 years here is that I don't think we pay enough attention to the transitions. We know what conditions are like, at the beginning. We know what they're like on paper and where we want to end up at the end. But getting there could take a year, 2 years, maybe longer. And if we don't get those transitions right, we are not doing the citizens a service by having a great endpoint. If people get into serious trouble in the meantime, and that's just a general observation about this particular carriageway project. But I have a feeling some of that is also going on with Washington Street. So thank you, Jen. I really do appreciate the work that you've done. It's very interesting.
Yeah, thank you for that
Jen,
feedback.
I'm gonna move us along because we have a very full agenda. So you can have a separate conversation with Councilor Block about this. Councilor Getz.
Indeed. The only thing that I would add is that I appreciate the amount of work that went into this. I also appreciate that it's all centralized and in one document. I assume that now that it's being formalized, that it's actually being added to, as an addendum to the comprehensive plan, it heightens its significance. It sort of like sets the standards for all of the implementation of all of these plans. So that's a good thing. The one thing that I really do want to push for is public outreach and education. Because I think, as you were speaking to, getting people, both drivers and all the multiple users, bicyclists, what the signage means and just the designations in the road, it's very confusing at times. And on Beacon Street especially, there's like portions that just dribble down to like this for a bicyclist, and then the rest of the roadway. So it gets very confusing. And I think it's really important that everybody understands the rules, in play. And then one piece that I sort of feel is important is I've seen depending on the municipality, they have different designations and they have different, usages, and it sort of seems as if I'm impressed with what I'm seeing in Cambridge in spots,
Mhm.
in terms of, the designation, the raised bike lanes, and the separation of users. And I sort of feel like maybe we should have all those, but I'm sure it's all, budget dependent.
Yeah, they're more expensive.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
once those users are separate, it's safer for everybody.
It's a better experience. I
Yeah.
completely agree with that,
Yeah.
yes.
But definitely the education, because it's, again,
Yeah,
people
and
don't understand.
we work on that in our schools. It's harder to work on that in the community. That's sort of also a state goal because the people driving and biking in our community are not all Newton residents and don't all read the mayor's newsletter or follow our social media feed. But the schools, we send out information about being a safe cyclist. We're about to send out our Use Your Lights at Night campaign to the secondary schools. But it's much harder to reach adults.
Okay, Councilor Leary has a quick question and then we can bring this one to an end.
Jen, did the police department continue to do the bike safety at the schools?
They can do the bike safety.
They have the staffing for it?
I believe they have the staffing for it. I believe that one of our officers does it. We're still working on getting that back into the schools post-COVID. Before COVID, most schools did have bike safety.
Yeah, I remember it, then I just
Yeah.
haven't seen it in a long time now.
Yes, so it is the goal, or it was a goal at least last year, of each school to have bike safety. I'm not sure how many schools had it. We're looking for other opportunities as well. Mass Safe Routes to School and in public schools will be at the Thrive 25 teacher professional development event on election day, and have a bike safety session to help train teachers in how to teach bike safety. And we're doing pedestrian safety training as well, because the best way to get it into the schools is to have teachers do it. And the police are very happy to come in and do that as well. Either a safety talk, or
It would be
other.
good if there was like a plan to have that on a regular basis,
Yes.
because I think that is so important.
I'm part of the school transportation steering group, as are the schools. We have
Yeah.
city councilors and school committee members, and that has been a long time goal for us. And we were quite successful at that before COVID, but it's been slow to shift back in as staff have turned over, and there's a lot of competing priorities as well.
Okay, I
Yeah.
understand. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't have that many memories of my my elementary school teachers and principal, but I remember Officer Feely, who did bike safety at the Ward School.
Wow.
Yeah, Cabot too.
Yeah.
Councilor Albright.
Okay, do we have a motion on this?
Motion to approve.
So Councilor Leary has moved approval and to have this be made part of the comprehensive plan. Are there any other comments on that? Okay, let's vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much.
Okay, we're moving on to our next item. Commissioner Sullivan asked us to switch around the order of our items. I hope nobody will object to that. Because we have some consultants here for the Newton Highlands project, so she would ask us if we could do the Newton Highlands project before we do it. So they all might. Yeah, yeah. So this item is
Introduce while you set up.
let me just read it into the record. 317-25, Council Albright requesting review and discussion of conceptual plan for the Newton Highlands Village Improvement Project prior to advancing to the final design phase. And so, pardon Commissioner Sullivan's back, but you can maybe switch around if you need to.
I'm just letting the consultants set up their presentation.
Okay,
So good evening and thank you for the opportunity to present this project tonight. I'd like to begin by introducing the project team from the City of Planning Director Bonnie Key, Deputy Commissioner of Public Works Bernie McDonald, Director of Transportation Planning Jen Martin, and our ADA Coordinator Jeannie Fairley. We've also worked closely with our colleagues from Park Tech and Culture to shape landscaping and streetscape elements. On the design side, we are joined by our consultants from Apex, Margot Spiller and Jim Fitzgerald. And also we have a representative of Tool, I believe, here. Stephanie Wire. Thank you. This initiative originally began as an accessibility project focused on overcoming steep topography, long crossing distances, and other barriers that make it difficult for people with mobility challenges to navigate the Newton Highlands area. From that foundation, it has evolved into a broader vision that addresses not only accessibility, but also traffic calming, safer bicycle and pedestrian connections, improved parking, coordinated traffic signals throughout the project, and expanded green infrastructure. We are currently at the conceptual design phase. The ideas you'll see tonight reflect extensive community input gathered through public meetings, open houses, and workshops. These designs are not final. They are intended to illustrate how accessibility, safety, and village vibrancy can be integrated into one comprehensive plan. This evening, we are seeking the committee's approval to advance into final design. As we do so, we remain committed to continuing public engagement, ensuring that residents, businesses, and stakeholders alike have an active voice in shaping the details of this project. With that, I'll turn it over to the Apex team, who will walk you through the conceptual design and show how these improvements will create a safer, more accessible, and more welcoming Newton Highlands. Thank you. Great.
Musical chairs.
dinner.
Again, my name is Jim Fitzgerald. I'm a principal at Apex. Happy to be here. So I'm just going to start out by talking about an overview of the project, starting with the scope. So the primary scope is about 1,200 feet of Walnut Street from Forest Street on the north down to Center Street on the south, and then another 1,200 feet of Lincoln Street from Bowdoin on the west up to and including Walnut on the east. There are a number of other roadways that are in the secondary scope that are including Lake Ave, Station Ave, Bedford Street, Floral Street, and Center Street. We are looking to achieve a number of goals and objectives in this project that we're trying to fit all within a confined right of way and within around constraints. First is complete streets accommodations, trying to achieve that right balance between different modes of transportation, pedestrians, cyclists, transit users, and of course vehicles, and having them coexist within the space safely. There is a particular focus on accessibility and safety in this project as well, of course. We're also looking to provide thriving community spaces for the business owners, the residents, and for visitors, and with that, provide beautification in the area, things like landscaping, streetscaping, places to gather and enjoy the area. Last but not least, to provide infrastructure that supports stormwater following best management practices when it comes to phosphorus removal. So I'm going to next go through a bunch of existing conditions relative to pedestrians. More specifically, here there's a slide of the Walnut Lincoln Street intersection. Just to orient you, the Newton Highlands MBTA station is on the portion of this image on the left. And which actually there are plans for an accessibility project there as well, which kind of weighs in well for this project to extend those accommodations. But Walnut Street is a 4-lane roadway, as you all know, in this area specifically at this intersection. And so as a result, these crosswalks tend to be pretty long, especially the diagonal one, which is almost 90 feet long. So that's a long time for a pedestrian to be in a roadway, and and certainly it influences the traffic signal timing that you need to allow for a pedestrian to cross, thereby influencing traffic operations as well. Bit of a domino effect there. And as Shauna had mentioned about topographic challenges, this is really where one of the prime areas is, because the Walnut Street Bridge over the MBTA tracks is problematic. It creates a steep grade coming down on the side, and as a result, we certainly do not have ADA compliance when it comes to slopes on that corner. And it's a matter of grading and topographic challenges there. So fair share of issues for pedestrians. If we work our way westerly a bit, pardon me, I'm getting a strange message on my computer. At the Lincoln-Hartford intersection, the intersection itself is wider than it really should be, and that's why you'll see on the bottom right corner there the image of the no U-turn sign, because vehicles do tend to make U-turns on occasion there. The width of the intersection, kind of coupled with the fact that we have on-street parking and no bump outs or curb extensions, then results in longer pedestrian crossing distances for pedestrians, as long as 55 feet in this instance. So pedestrians have to step off the curb, walk into the roadway, gain an adequate line of sight around parked vehicles to see oncoming traffic. So less than ideal condition for pedestrians for sure. Working our way towards the north portion of the project, the Forest Walnut intersection, we have a nice little park with the beautiful fountain there, but unfortunately you can't walk to it. There's no crossings to get to that park. There are no ramps to access the park in the middle, as you can see in the top right photo. In fact, there is no accessibility for pedestrians walking north and south along the western side of that roadway to continue walking along Walnut. So that's problematic. Also, there are no crosswalks to go on the other side of Walnut Street. So you really have to walk a distance down to Lincoln or wherever to be able to meander across to gain access to the other side of the street. And Rodney Barker Square, great spot, great little square, but not ADA compliant. There are a number of tripping hazards, things like popped bricks, popped tree grates, and there are no ADA compliant ramps there at all. So through the process, there has been a substantial amount of engagement and a lot of interaction with the public. Began over 3 years ago. And so you can see here, we started with online public comment tools, several public meetings, open houses, business meetings, Complete Streets Working Group meetings. So all these things help really shape where we are at this point in time to really hear what the desires are, what the needs are, allow us to make iterations to the concept to achieve that right balance. Again, we're dealing with a very confined space here, trying to make the most use of every inch. And so with that, we have generated the concept that I'll be showing in a minute, but certainly the outreach and engagement doesn't stop here. It would continue through the final design phase of the project, where we start identifying pavement treatments, streetscape elements, all these other important portions of the project would need to be ironed out through, again, more engagement. So the conceptual design, here it is. So again, through a lot of outreach, a lot of iterations and balancing and trying to achieve all the goals that we heard and achieve a balance between all these interests, we've come up with this concept I'll just start with the parking element, certainly an important component for the businesses as well as the residents in the area. So the proposed design, the area that you see here in the sketch, actually what we're showing is that we are increasing the number of parking spaces from 157 parking spaces to 172 parking spaces, so a net increase of 15. I will say that these parking, both the before and after numbers do reflect the parking lot on the Hartford Street, along Hartford Street. So that parking lot contains 54 of those spaces that I had mentioned. Next, since pedestrians and bicycles are such a big component of this project, traffic calming is an important element when we look at improvements here. So what we're trying to do is provide gateway treatments at the project limits and then keep that messaging throughout the corridor in appropriate distances. So if we start at the northern portion of the project and work our way southerly at the Walnut Forest intersection, we're looking to expand that park on the corner there, make it more of a moment, make it more evident and noticeable, as well as provide a mountable median island within Walnut Street to help calm traffic, slow motorists down. That median island is mountable because we want to tighten access for the passenger vehicles, but we want to make sure that we maintain access for the larger trucks who have to turn at the intersection on occasion. So that's why that's there. And again, it kind of sets the tone as you work your way southerly down to the Walnut Lake intersection. We are considering a raised table intersection there. That would be a gradual transition from the roadway elevation up on the sides, and then the intersection itself remains flat as a raised table. And very good, effective traffic calming device to reduce travel speeds and highlight pedestrian crossings as well. Working our way southerly down to Walnut Floral, again, more mountable median islands to reduce travel speeds, and down Walnut at Center Street within the signalized intersection, the infield, we're looking at textured colored pavement as an initial messaging to motorists that they're entering into a special area. Traffic calming is also being considered and proposed along Lincoln Street, first with an initial gateway treatment at the Bowden Street intersection, another raised table intersection with curb extensions and bump outs. Again, these curb extensions allow the pedestrian to see oncoming traffic, shortens crossing distances for pedestrians, coupled with the raised table would create a gateway treatment for eastbound Lincoln Street motorists entering into this area. Curb extensions continue at the Chester Street Lincoln intersection. And then when we get to the from Columbus Street up to the Walnut Street intersection, we're looking at a shared street treatment. This would be a roadway that would be a bit higher than the existing roadway, but would be a different color and texture than the other roadways, kind of highlighting this area as a special area and promoting motorists to travel at a slower speed. And I have a slide on this in a moment, but of course, important part of this is maintaining drainage, maintaining safety for pedestrians and sidewalks, and all those things all are definitely part of the project. So with these traffic calming features, we look at bicycle accommodations and the benefits that cyclists will experience here. Because we do have confined space, we're trying to squeeze a lot of things within a confined area. So we're not able to provide exclusive off-road bicycle facilities here. But what we're doing is we're altering the driver's speed and behavior significantly from what's there today to make it safe and comfortable for cyclists to share the roadway with the motorists. There is, however, one section that we do want to prioritize with exclusive bicycle accommodations, and that's along Floral Street south of Walnut, and then Walnut Street from Floral up to Station. So we're trying to provide connections from the T Station and Crystal Lake up on the north to accommodations down on the south that are connecting down to Winchester Street and Southerly. So if we take a closer look at what that might look like. So Floral Street, as you know, is a one-way roadway for motorists traveling southbound. So cyclists would continue to share the road with the motorists heading southbound. But in the northbound direction, we've included a contraflow bike lane. What this is it's a separate space with delineation, yellow striping, that separates the northbound cyclists from the southbound motorists and cyclists, allowing this to become two-way for bicycle use. Cyclists would then go travel northerly up Floral, where they would approach Walnut to a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, press the button, the lights start flashing, and alerts the motorist that the bicyclist or the pedestrian who hit it is crossing the street, trying to promote that safety at that intersection that's already has those other traffic calming devices I had mentioned before. And then on Walnut, we have bike lanes, and I have a slide that shows this a little bit closer up as well. So the traffic calming features really benefit not only slowing down motorists, but providing, highlighting the use of the cyclists and the pedestrians in the roadway as well. So if we start at the northern limit on the left of the slide, this is just north of Forest Street. Walnut Street right now has bike lanes in both directions. So the bicycles entering into the project heading southbound on Walnut, approaching Forest Street, would have an extended bike lane that would travel through the intersection and through the first moment of traffic calming, this first gateway treatment. Again, the enlarged park with beautiful landscaping, the median island. After that point, once the motorist is traveling at a slower speed and alerted to the change in the setting, then the bicyclists transition into the roadway in a roadway that's much slower traveled than it is today. Looking at the treatments over at at Forest Street, namely that median island, also provides a benefit to the pedestrians as well, because it allows a pedestrian to cross one lane of traffic, one direction of traffic at a time before they can stop, take a moment, look for a gap in that other direction of traffic and continue on their way. So a dramatic improvement than what's there today, certainly. At the Walnut Lake intersection, again, raised table intersection, but you can see how highlighted and visible that pedestrian crossing is there in a location in the heart of a traffic calming feature. So again, really serving to slow traffic down significantly. This is a section between of Walnut Street between Lincoln and Floral. You can see on both sides of Walnut Street, we have a bike lane. On the bottom side of the screen, which is actually Walnut Street traveling southbound, we do have on-street parking there, but we have a buffer, a striped buffer, to provide a little separation between the parked vehicle and the bike lane. This helps when parked vehicles open their doors, and so to avoid impacting the cyclists traveling by. And you can also see how a little closer view of the bike lanes, contraflow bike lane on Floral as well, with the double line there. This shot shows the shared street treatment along Lincoln Street that is extended from Columbus Street up to Walnut. So again, the pavement would be a different color and texture than the other roadways. It would be a higher elevation than a traditional roadway, but low enough to maintain roadway drainage. Things like planters and bollards and things like that would be located along, and trees would be located along the roadway to provide that more of a barrier for pedestrians. It would feel different, much different than the other portions of the roadway. Again, it's really highlighting this area that's kind of the core of this area. And certainly a part of the project is looking at the traffic operations, and wanting to make sure that we're maintaining operations here. So we took traffic counts back in 2022, back during COVID, and have just recently taken more counts on October 4th and on October 7th, looking at the weekend and the weekday turning movement volumes at all these locations that are circled in red. The traffic volumes, what we found was that, as anticipated, the volumes increased slightly from what we saw in 2022. Nothing too dramatic, however, except the one surprise, quite frankly, is at the Walnut Center Street intersection, where traffic volumes actually decrease along the southbound Center Street approach, which may be influenced by the congestion that's being experienced at those signals, right? So we are looking closely at the two signalized intersections of Walnut and Lincoln, and Walnut Center, but also looking at how we tie in to the two intersections that Mass DOT has built, and wanting to make sure that we provide accommodations that is the latest in technology to make sure that these signals operate together efficiently. Right now, we've witnessed, and I'm sure you all have witnessed, traffic queuing from Route 9 back into the Walnut Center Street intersection, which can be problematic. And so we want to make sure that the accommodations that are looking at all three locations as a system instead of two different systems, with things like queue detection and things like that, to make sure that things are operating much better, which will make a big difference here. So just to get into the Walnut Street, Lincoln Street intersection a little bit. So again, this is the location where we're dealing with topography issues over the MBTA bridge. And so under existing conditions, each approach has 2 lanes. However, on the southbound Walnut Street approach, which is on the left side of the screen, our second lane, the exclusive right turn lane, is relatively short. It's only about 70 feet long. On the Lincoln Street approach, on the bottom of the page, the right turn lane is only 60 feet long. So in both instances, traffic can queue up and block that lane, preventing that lane from being fully usable. They're such short lanes to begin with. And a lot of it has to do with constraints. In the case of Lincoln Street, it's on-street parking. So you can see in the photo on the bottom right how, vehicles queue up, you can't get to that right lane. So it's a benefit to have the lane to some degree, but we're not fully realizing the full benefit of having 2 lanes in these instances by far. So we have managed to reanalyze the intersection with the counts that just recently were collected, and looked at the existing traffic volumes and identified the level of service. Level of service is a letter grade that is based off of the amount of delay that vehicles experience. If we look, each lane movement has a different level of service, but if you look at the averaged overall sum, which is what the summary is, the intersection currently operates at a level of service C. Not great, not terrible. Most instances, the observations we have, which also were very recent, in most instances, vehicles are able to get through with 1 cycle, sometimes 2, based on the days that we were out there observing. If we rerun these volumes, project them out 10 years, including growth factors and nearby development, things like that, delay increases a little bit, volumes increase a little bit, delay increases a little bit, but not to a major degree. It's still a level of service C. We reran it with this concept here, where we would consider removing that second lane, that right turn lane, that again, not fully utilized. What we're finding is that the existing phasing and timing, by optimizing the existing phasing and timing, we are able to more than make up for losing that one short right turn lane segment. We actually improved our level of service in 2035 on turn Saturdays from a level service C to a level service B because of that difference in the phasing and timing that we're achieving.
And the crosswalk situation looks a lot better.
It does, it's much shorter, and to your point, part of it is also attributed to the fact that when a pedestrian hits the button, you need to allow enough time for them to cross at a certain speed. If you've got a 90-foot diagonal crosswalk, it takes up a little bit of time, you know? So next, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie to talk about open space and green infrastructure.
Thank you. And my name is Stephanie Wire. I'm Senior Landscape Architect at Tool Design. I'm going to just talk first about green infrastructure and then hop into some high-level concepts for Rodney Barker Square and the kind of gateway treatment at Forest and Walnut Corner. So, Newton DPWs, are you familiar with green infrastructure? And as Jim mentioned earlier, there's a broad goal for green infrastructure addressing MS4 permitting and the reduction of phosphorus. Broadly, green infrastructure has a lot of great benefits. Reduction of phosphorus, total suspended solids, is all water quality, just reducing contaminants, reducing flow into the closed drainage system, so the pipe system underground, and slowing down that flow, really increasing our stormwater system capacity. These pictures on the right are showing the very green planted version of green infrastructure. I'm going to kind of walk you through different versions of green infrastructure that maybe don't include that, but when we have plants and trees, we can also increase our air quality. As the climate changes and warms and we're looking at more flood events or even just more intense storms, the ability for the street to be able to manage more of that water without all of it just going to the pipe system, flooding downstream, is something that's going to provide a benefit. And then lastly, as mentioned earlier, education. This is a great way to kind of get the community involved, learning about ecosystem services, how water and our streets are functioning together. Green infrastructure is a broad term, but generally we do mean it mostly in terms of water and how we're draining things off the street in this case. And I just want to highlight those pictures are just from the library parking lot across the street, which has some green infrastructure in terms of planting and also I think some permeable asphalt. I know Apex worked on that project. So the less green version is the hardscape version, the pavement. We're essentially going to kind of walk through as part of the next stage of design, what's the right menu? We're going to look at where's the water going? What are the problems that we want to solve? What are the soil conditions? And then we're going to get a better sense of where do you potentially want to use green infrastructure at all? And what kind do you want to use? And do you use any kind of permeable materials, hard materials, such as pavers, concrete, or asphalt, all of which can be porous. So they have open pore systems that allow water in, and generally they're over, different layers of stone that first is kind of smaller graded stone that just keeps the surface stable and kind of does an initial flush of holding back any small particles that come through. And then you have a larger stone reservoir that really holds the water and slows it up. And that is way all of these systems generally work. These are kind of two asphalt photos on the far left, and then the rest porous concrete. And you can just see it's very fun when you see these systems to just dump a bottle of water on them and just watch the water disappear versus travel anywhere. The bottom left photo is kind of the big picture illustration of, the very left part of that is an impervious system. It's just regular asphalt. Waters are going to run down to a catch basin somewhere and go into your pipes. On the right, you're just watching it go in the ground, keeping it out of the pipe system. And on the the rest of the photos here are showing you something particularly called Stormcrete. So it's a porous proprietary concrete system that is modular. You can see the guys installing it down on the far right, where they just bring it in pieces. It's precast concrete that is cured off-site, brought on site, and just kind of instantly stabilized. So those are the hardscape options. Bioretention areas goes back to the kind of open, beautiful planted version of green infrastructure. Generally works the same in that there's a system we can't totally see underground, but this is something that we would look at incorporating along the sidewalk, largely along those curb extensions, so we're really pulling the curb out where the road is narrowing. And we can look at, different options for the kinds of plants we want to include. Do we want a native plant system that has pollinators in it? And just create a level of interest. You can also add trees to these as well, depending on the size. So just some real world pictures there. The bottom, or kind of the side two left, the left ones, you can see a little bit the inlets that are involved. These are systems that really have to work with flowing water in, and then generally you have something that kind of filters out the sediment before it goes into the plants. And that's something that kind of the bottom left one you're not seeing so much compared to the top one. The picture on the right is a project that Tool Design worked on in Winchester. It's a small little just corner bump out at Church and Waterfield Street in Winchester downtown, where it's just a very simple bioretention system that also has seating alongside it. So along the sidewalk area, so not necessarily at those bump outs, but just kind of the longer segments, we can really start looking at connected tree trenches. So there's kind of two ideas that are related here, and that you can have, without green infrastructure, connected tree planting areas. We can try to connect our soils underground to give trees more rooting space, trees, low shrubs, whatever you want to put in the planting. On a stormwater basis, we can translate that to tree trenches that actually flow water into them. And you're seeing an image that's showing some piping underneath as well. So water, instead of just coming from the sidewalk into a planting area, can actually flow in from the street into that as well. And it has all of those filtering benefits that we've kind of gone over earlier. So this is an option that we would also be considering along those street segments. So Rodney Barker Square, we have just one concept to go over here. Of course, there are many details to work out as we go forward. But generally, we're trying to use our building alignments and the existing trees as our organizing features. We're generally trying to preserve the trees that are in good health. That will need further assessment. What are the conditions of the trees? But for now, assuming we're keeping them, planted buffers you're seeing in green along the edges of the sidewalk, these can be GI, green infrastructure features as well, depending on the analysis. Is the water coming to them? We'll look into the pavement materials. So right now, as Jim mentioned, this is an inaccessible brick plaza. We want to make it an accessible space. There are different ways to do this. Perhaps we're using something like Stormcrete that's throughout the plaza, but that's going to change the appearance of it, right? Brick to concrete. We could also use a combination of permeable brick pavers in portions, maybe just around the trees, and then the rest is impermeable. So these are things that we're going to need to consider going forward, and just make sure that we're really hitting all our accessibility goals, and that the total cross-section that's kind of constructed with the pavement is going to be durable over time, which I just mentioned, because I know the permeable pavers can, occasionally can get unsettled if not installed correctly. So again, we want to maintain the existing trees, and this is an opportunity to expand the root zones underneath. And then just you're seeing around those trees a number of yellow squares and some bench configurations. These are all just very high level, just meant to express the different things that could come to play. Also outdoor dining as well. So we can think about different kinds of seat configurations as shown here. Just to provide a variety of seating options. Make sure we're including accessible furniture and accessible spaces alongside furniture. So spaces for wheelchairs to pull up alongside furniture. Or, if we have outdoor dining, kind of extended tables. Material options and the style. Do we want it to be modern? Do we want it to be traditional? These are things that we will definitely be asking for feedback on going forward. And what should the materials be? Is it wood? Is it composite materials? What are the maintenance obligations? These are things that we'll discuss in the next phase as well. So lastly, then we're coming to Forest Street, Walnut Street Plaza, which Jim, is describing how this is a gateway coming down from the north on Walnut Street. And where we have a disconnected triangle with the fountain today, we're really looking to root that into the side of the space. I have two concepts to show for this one, and both we're removing the fountain. In this particular one, or well, really in either one, we can reconstruct the base around the fountain. There is kind of just the historical fountain and then a concrete base around it. We can remove that base and just have the fountain kind of spilling down to permeable pavers, permeable paving system below. In both, we're looking at planted buffers along the street edge. You're looking at a much more formalized kind of space that all faces within itself here, very circular with benches that are kind of regularly placed. You can see on the side, there are homes here that have sidewalks that face onto the space. So we're mindful of keeping their private access, coming into these spaces and then being able to access the sidewalk on either side. We like to include, small to medium-sized trees, given the utility lines. And then just the benches, we're thinking about maybe open benches or benches that are just backed in portions to allow seating, allow people to kind of face both directions. So they could face the street or they could face inward to the space. So that's kind of the more formal option. Here is the more, you kind of can think of it as the wooded option, and kind of wandering into the space. It's not really shown, but these spaces could have be a little lined with benches as well. So it's going to feel a little bit more private. You have your kind of individual space. Same thing though, otherwise for the planted buffers along the road, and potentially become green infrastructure. Small to medium-sized trees to avoid the overhead utilities. And then, of course, we'll be looking at the materials and the types of styles going forward. I think it's back to you.
It's like
One more round of
musical chairs, right?
You're it.
Thank you. So next steps. As I mentioned before, continued public engagement in order to understand, make some of these decisions, refine the concept further, and get more into the details of things, and of course advance into the final design if that is that in fact does happen, hopefully, and then of course pursuing funding for the construction. And so with that would be identifying appropriate funding sources. One that we've been discussing collectively has been MassWorks with next year's expressions of interest and things like that, getting prepared for that funding. One benefit. One thing with MassWorks, I will say, is that project readiness is part of the game to show that the project is serious, that the city is serious in pursuing the funds. That was one thing that we were talking about for construction funds.
So is that the end of your presentation?
It is, yes.
So before I call on folks, can I, just for context sake, if we were to say, yeah, this is a great concept, we should move forward with a final design. How much, what's the time frame for the final design and how much community input would there be?
Well, I think that would be yet to be worked out, but
Yeah, I mean, the timeline is really up to DPW. I would say if we went full steam ahead right after this, might be like 9 to 12 months, but you know, there are a lot of details to still be worked out in terms of materials, landscape opportunities that wouldn't want to rush through, so.
I think the
Public
first,
engagement.
Exactly.
I was about to say, I think the first step is scheduling public engagement regularly to get to that finish line. Depending on what the desired deadline would be, to make sure that we get those questions answered in a timely manner. And, you know, like Margot said, probably within a year's time, that could be ready to go. As far as the final design is concerned.
The MassWorks grant, would you apply for it after the year is up?
I think what the strategy would be is to submission expression of interest in the spring. And then be able to speak to the advancements and the status of the design. And the schedule to complete the design, to show commitment that the project is advancing, moving forward. We have a deadline, an internal deadline that this thing will be done by. MassWorks grants do give there is a range of time that the funds can be spent by. So we want to make sure that we stay within that, but I don't think that would be, I want to say it's 3 years. But that would be all attainable if the
Okay.
design was done.
And one other context question, I mean, there's a lot of discussion in emails that we've received about undergrounding wires. And I know Serge and I started on a task force together 20 years ago about undergrounding, and President Laredo has been very interested in undergrounding. Is there a way it could be an option? You know, maybe it's not gonna happen, maybe it is gonna happen. If the funding is findable, it could happen. Could it be an optional part of the plan or not?
I wish I had an easy answer to that one. I know that's been a big discussion throughout this project's history. The challenge is that when undergrounding utilities. Thank you so much.
As it serves.
My God. When undergrounding utilities. Traditionally, it's designed by the utility company. And so that is a cost. And an investment by the city. To advance through that process.
Regardless of the cost, let's just hold costs constant. Let's say that we had all the money in the world, or we don't know if we have all the money, could it be an option? So could you have it as an option, which is if you find the money, we do it. If you don't find the money, we don't.
I suppose what could be done is, now, Sean, I don't want to speak for you in case you've already looked into this, but in order to do that, again, the utility company would have to design it, and there would have to be enough space and relocating existing utilities to make space
Okay,
for those undergrounding
Yes.
utilities. So it's, in order, I wish it was just one single line in the ground and call it a day. There's much more, it's much more involved than that. And so in theory, you would likely be impacting a lot of things to shift things around in the event you might want to use it someday. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I know we found with the Needham Street project that there simply wasn't room in the Needham Street.
Well, that's a big concern.
Yeah. So
Right,
that
one
was a
of our
surprise.
biggest
Yeah.
concerns with that. Also, the funding for it, it is not currently part of our project budget.
No, but you don't have any money for implementation anyway, so.
We don't, but the design would need to include if.
Okay. Okay, so that gives me an answer a little bit. So let me call on President Laredo first.
So how much money have we spent so far in this?
I think we are about $500,000.
That's what we spend in total. That's gone to the
Mhm.
consultants.
It has.
Is there anyone else who's been paid besides these consultants?
No.
Okay, 500,000. How much more is it gonna cost us to get the final
For
design?
conceptual. Is that where we are now, right?
We spent 500,000 of ARPA money. How much more to get the final design?
Probably 500,000.
Another 500,000. Okay. How much is the city committed of ARPA funds totally for this project?
$1 million.
Okay. So is that a fixed price for the 500,000?
So that is hard to answer. If we
Well, they
develop our
working on-
project scope and we don't go over the meetings and refine, continuously make changes to the design once we've finalized portions of the design, yes, the 500,000.
So are they working on a fixed price or are they working on time and materials?
Materials.
Time and materials.
Time, really.
So we don't have a fixed price for this work. So the 500,000 is an estimate.
It is.
And if we go over by 100 or 150 or 200,000, where's that coming from?
That would be up to the administration.
We'd have to ask the engineer.
So, I want to be really clear here. Mass Works, how much do you think they would contribute towards doing this work?
MassWorks is, can I say, the biggest funding source? I would think. I can't answer that question. I think it could be a strategy regarding how much to ask for, but MassWorks is big dollars when it comes to
Okay,
funding.
but how
So
much,
could we ask for all of it?
So what-
how much
Perhaps.
is this gonna cost in total? This, if we spend the $500,000, how much will it cost to do the work as you're proposing?
For construction?
Yeah,
The signals, the paving.
everything. I
think
want to
there-
get it all done. How much it's gonna cost?
I think there needs to be a lot of decisions made having to do with the streetscape amenities and the green infrastructure will have a huge.
Give me a ballpark.
Well, perhaps.
No, but look, folks, I'm being blunt about this
Yeah.
because we're spending $500,000 more of city money, okay, or ARPA money. We have no funding source for this right now at all, and we need to know how much it's gonna cost us to do the work. Is it gonna be 2 million or 10 million?
10
2
million.
million, 2 million is easier,
10
10
million.
million is a lot harder.
Yeah.
10 million. And typically, how much, what percentage does MassWorks give as a grant towards a project?
So they did cover most of the Petty Square project. I think that was over $3 million.
Okay. And but we have no idea how much they would give us. Do you know if they're giving 20%, 50%, 75%?
Situation.
It is not a matching situation. They actually give large dollars.
Council Laredo,
Also take a phased approach to this, do say whichever one was the priority, do Walnut Street or do Lincoln Street, and then go again for another grant for the other portion of the project.
So I mean, I have a lot of questions here, as you can tell, and I'm very concerned about us spending a lot of money on planning without any dedicated funding source. What are the odds of us getting MassWorks money?
Can I, before Commissioner Sullivan, Director Heath, do you have information about this that you want to share, or should I wait and call on you later?
no, that's fine. The max award under MassWorks had been about $5 million. So, and it's generally about 50% that they will pick up. The more local money you put in, the better your chances are of getting an award, but.
Strategy.
So Petty Square, they picked up 3 of the 5 million?
No, it was only 3.
They were the 3, I think.
We got significant funding for Petty.
So if it's a 10 million.
I will provide the details on Petty.
We have to come up with 5. And complete plans, as you're saying, like you have a much better shot if we go through this next
Let me
round.
call on Counselor.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
On Counselor Bartley. Yes. We'll let Counselor.
You had a wide variety of suggestions with the permeable pavers and other things like that. Have you factored any of the maintenance costs into that? As you're thinking about design?
The whole design needs to factor those maintenance costs in.
Okay, so we obviously it's an option, but no idea what what comparative maintenance costs would be if we go with one versus the other?
They're probably fairly similar, I would think. We would have to sweep all of the porous, vacuum sweep,
So that's,
all of the porous pavement. It would be an investment in a, probably a vacuum sweeper for.
and
those
that would be
areas.
not only the vacuum sweeping, but a person to do that work.
We have dedicated people already that do that work.
So we'd have to get another piece of equipment. to do
We
it.
would have to get another piece, we need that piece of
And-
equipment
You're buying-
anyway.
Your open bioretention areas are lower mains in the sense that they don't require.
I get that. So if we were to phase this project, let's say we don't have $10 million to spend, what do you think we should do first here?
Which portion?
Yeah.
That would be, well, I think we would probably want some community input. My gut reaction would be Walnut Street for the signal coordination to improve the flow through.
We
the
can do the signal coordination without any of this other planning, right? Most of it?
I think you'd probably have to, I mean, it's kind of a domino effect. If you do the signals over at Walnut, Lincoln and touch those sidewalks, you're going to need to put back ADA compliant accommodation. So there will be some degree of changes on the corner to get that grade from over the bridge. So that element would be necessary to install signals there, I would think, because you're also installing accessible pedestrian signals, different types of equipment. So I would say you'd have to achieve ADA compliance at the intersection, which.
I'm not prepared, just to be clear, I'm not prepared to vote for this tonight, okay? I personally need to see a lot more about the money here. There's a
Okay,
lot of.
President Moreno, we know where you are. Let's get everybody
I'm gonna
else.
stop.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Kalis.
Thank you so much. I gotta say, I'm a little flabbergasted that we've spent so much money. What was the original budget on this?
$1 million total.
1 million. So, so that was the original, even though you said the scope has increased a lot,
I don't think I said the scope increased a lot.
but he did. He said it started with this, a particular project.
So that was,
and-
I'm sorry, Counselor. It started within the city as an accessibility project before we engaged the consultants.
Okay. So to, one thing, Councilor Laredo, and I don't know if it matters, but the lights, the signalization has been on the CIP. Maybe Mr. Yo can talk about that, where it's at right now in the CIP, and if it could be funded in that way versus in this project, because that's something that could be considered.
Yes, DPW has prioritized, we have many intersections that need work. Probably a dozen intersections that need significant work. And at this point, there is no funding in the CIP for any of those projects. Because of our debt service load and all the projects we're already funding and working on right now. So obviously it's up to the next administration how they want to prioritize operating versus capital spending. But at this point, we are looking to these kinds of projects to advance some of these intersection improvements. And this is one of several key priority intersections that need work. So I guess the bottom line answer to your question is there is no funding right now in the CIP for this intersection.
Okay, and this is my last funding question, but for West Newton Square, what was the budget there for planning?
Director Heath, do you remember that?
Not off the top of my head, but it's usually between 10 and 20%. But Jim could speak to that as well.
I mean, I'm just trying to figure out if we've just been spending a lot of money on this and going round and round, but I can't tell. Just a couple of comments then on the actual work itself. I definitely like the treatment on Floral, the raised tables, the slowing of the cars. Couple of questions. Walnut Street going north, there's a bike lane that is tiny. Is that getting wider?
Going north where specifically on Walnut?
Right near Forest.
Oh, up at Forest. One moment. So that's where we are transitioning from, you're talking about for northbound cyclists leaving the project? So we're transitioning into the existing bike lane that is there. Are you referring to the narrow bike lane? Just
Yeah, it's really too narrow. It's not even legal. So it's just,
Yeah.
I want to make sure some of the stuff is realistic.
Sure. Well, that's actually where we're transitioning from our project from a shared street into the bike lane. So we can certainly take a look at what that lane width is there and see if we can shift the striping over a little bit if need be.
Yeah, that would be good. Then what happens also to outdoor dining with all the parking you're putting in?
It remains. It would be more of a shared streets approach on Lincoln, and that's where the outdoor dining is. So it would still exist in a different look,
Okay,
similar to Newtonville.
okay. But you're still adding 15 spots.
Yes.
Okay, on the 15 spots, one thing that really we should consider as a committee and as a city is the one thing I always hear from constituents is traffic. We get more and more traffic, and what drives traffic is parking. And to be adding parking here, to me, is the wrong thing. I feel like, yes, there isn't a lot of parking. It can be tough to find around there, but it's counter to where we're going and what our what we keep hearing from our constituents. On the Lincoln Street turning right to Walnut, where you have 2 lanes currently, that whole area, there's an openness about it when that feels really nice. If you go to a single lane and then have a backup of cars, you're going to remove that openness. I want to know if you looked at that, and if you looked at that when there were shuttles parked on Walnut, or if there was a backup because of a red light at Walnut and Center, and make sure that you've thought through that, because if you go to a single lane and we constantly have cars on Lincoln, that really is going to affect the feel.
Conventionally, as designers, what we do is we want to provide the right mix of providing just enough space for all motorists to be able to maneuver any sort of turns without providing excess space. So when excess space exists, then fast driver behavior occurs. So we would, as part of the final design, certainly want to take a close look at further look at the vehicles turning at that intersection to make sure that there's more than enough space, or adequate space, I should say, the right amount of space to be able to maneuver through that. But having an extra lane there, if we have extra space, it doesn't necessarily mean we should just include it in the roadway unless there's a true need.
I understand. I just want to make sure that you're looking at it under realistic conditions, because there are shuttles that are constantly parked over that bridge, on that bridge.
And one thing I will also say is that a lot of times what we do with these designs in the design phase is to do a trial as well, to try out how things operate, especially when we're tightening things. It's pretty easy to do, right? So because we have the extra space, and to make sure that even though on paper it makes sense, it works, in reality, it also works.
Okay. Two quick things, Chair, and then I'll be done. On Barker Square, I just want you to know, I really think we should focus on maintaining the charm. Whether it's brick or using wood or whatever it is, I don't think concrete is the right answer there. And I just feel like maintaining that feel is important. And then on the Forest Street Plaza, I wouldn't overthink it. I mean, you're talking about it as this gateway, but it's really not. It's a fountain that's been there. And if we have limited funds, which I think we need to be thinking about it in those ways, there are certain things that you don't need to really over focus on. That's all I have.
Thank you. So just one more context.
Can I
question.
add one thing?
Oh, go ahead.
Because this
please.
is important. It's about the shuttle buses. So we're thinking of shifting the shuttle buses to the other side of Walnut Street, Counselor.
So where there's 2 lanes, going
Yeah.
north? Will it block one of the lanes?
It will while they pick up, but that is current conditions today. It's where the MBTA bus stops.
Okay, I know, but it's just there, that's a lot of shuttles there, and you often do get that backup going to Center Street. You'll have to test it and learn
There's
it,
two
but
lanes
I
there
hear you.
versus the one lane on the other side of Walnut.
Yeah,
So it'll
I don't
give
know
you
which
a
is
little more
best.
capacity.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's to be decided. Just one more context question before I call on Councilors Getz and Kelly. You've asked us to approve the concept plan. If we don't approve it tonight, just to give us the time frame. Why, is there a rush to get to the final design? What's up with the money that might be an issue?
Well, the ARPA funds run out
So you have to.
December.
This coming December?
6th,
So the idea is to, December when?
2026.
Okay, so we have another year.
You do.
And we're coming up on the year that you said it would take to do this final design.
Mhm.
So
And we would help.
May I ask a
Design.
question on the ARPA funds?
on the ARPA funds?
Can we use the ARPA funds for other things?
Not very easily at this point. We need to have contracts for other items that it would get used on. I mean, if, we can do road paving
That's.
somewhere else in the city, yeah.
We take that $500,000.
Right, and then this project is canceled. I mean, that's the challenge.
Take the $500,000 and use it for road paving?
Theoretically, yes,
Okay.
that can be done. Yes, the answer is yes.
As long as our contractors have the bandwidth to do all of
That's
the
right.
paving.
There's some,
There is that.
yeah.
Okay.
So do know
I
that.
have 3 people that want to speak, and I just want to say that I think I want to end this part of the evening by 9:15. So we have another half hour, that's plenty of time. If not everybody speaks forever, that's all. Councilor Getz.
Well, I'll be brief. I've got a couple of questions regarding process. From the conceptual to final, I'm concerned about what can and cannot change in that process. Is it something that hardscape can actually shift and actually be redesignated or changed significantly between conceptual to final? I mean, I would like to understand that, just even in terms of the process.
I think that the one thing that we would want to nail down would be the geometry, the edge of road.
Right.
The horizontal geometry specifically, to know that that's not going to shift around. That's kind of the first fundamental part of the design, is getting that nailed down. So that would be important, and then that would allow us to then work into the grading, make sure that we're able to achieve the grading that we need to. The elements having to do with the more fine-tuned elements of the drainage, green infrastructure, furnishings, trees, things like that. Those would all be in flux. Certainly, those are things that would need to be ironed out through further public engagement and coordination to determine anyway. But I think really it's the fundamental part of it is the horizontal geometry and getting that nailed down.
All right, so that would be finalized with this approval?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so that even means the lane changes and the, all the sort of whatever you.
I will say that there can be tweaks, minor tweaks here and there. For instance, that portion of geometry nearest along the Lincoln approach to Walnut is relatively short right now. It's 60 feet long. So I mean, if we needed to tweak something like that, if we had to go down that road, not the biggest challenge. The biggest part is really where we have the horizontal alignment along the corridors, and we have, designated bike lanes here and parking here and things like that. The number of parking spaces can also change if it's desired to have more green space or recreational space instead of a parking spot. And we need to install a curb extension, then that's not a big deal either.
Yeah, so I'm appreciative of what President Laredo had spoken to in terms of this is not ready to vote on tonight. because I would like to have those plans in hand, you know, and I really need to review them. This is the first that I'm sort of seeing this level of presentation. So that's what I would like to consider holding this item for tonight. Now the other part is, did you get a historical consult? This is one of our oldest villages, you know, in the city, and you can sense it just in terms of the geometry and just how, you know, constricted it is. So, you know, I think that that's gonna then influence all of the decision making, you know, throughout the process. I think a historic consult would be a benefit, you know, just even in terms of just when you talk about all the furniture, it needs that correct balance.
Agreed.
Yeah.
When it comes to the streetscape element, furniture styles and what,
Right.
you know, what architecture we're playing off from the beginning
Right.
in buildings as an
Yeah.
influence on the, yes, that's.
Yeah.
That certainly will be part of that discussion, to complement the location and not make it a stark eyesore.
Yeah, and I don't want to take too much more time, but I'm actually really concerned about the level of, you know, changes that through the community input that were integrated into the design. And I have one specific question, you know, in the last iteration, based on the September 11th, 2025 meeting, the community meeting, what changes were made to the plan? I don't need to get the specifics right now, you know, just because I think it's too minutia, too much detail. But I'd like to know that it actually, what has changed within the plan based on community input? That's my generalized question.
Just on,
Oh,
yeah.
I will say they're not for
Yeah,
tonight.
it doesn't have to be for tonight. I just want to know that, you know, because it sort of then shows that it's actually a, you know, a collaborative effort. And, you know, we need to know that that's happening.
I think it would be an interesting exercise to see how much the plan changed from throughout the 3 years of public
Okay.
outreach. I don't want to speak for Margot, but the plans I feel were more, there are larger changes being included at the beginning as one would expect. And as the process continues, the idea is to get smaller and smaller as far as changes. So you mentioned that last meeting, but more relevant would be a little earlier
Okay.
and how big the changes
Okay.
were.
I'm happy to share
All right,
a link
that'd
to
be
the
great.
project website where you can see all of the changes. Every presentation is up
Okay,
there.
That would be
super.
great.
And
It'd
you
be
can go
wonderful.
through it.
And then lastly, I just sort of, well, I can keep going, but I have.
You said you'd be.
I know, with the shuttle buses, because I've actually watched the shuttle buses dump their passengers in the middle of Chestnut and Lincoln. Just literally stop and unload.
Walnut.
Yeah, I can't see it right now, but Walnut and Lincoln, they stop. And they're so big and they just unload, you know, and it's like, it's just
Yeah.
incredible to
Yeah.
watch. You know, it's sort of like,
Okay.
really?
I'm pretty clear that the shuttle buses need to be dealt with.
Yeah, yes.
Counselor Kelly.
Thanks. I'll try and be brief. Knowing we're not gonna vote on it tonight makes it easier, but I mean, I'm thinking lots of things. I wish I didn't have to be thinking about funding, but that's a reality. I like the idea that we're halfway through the design process. And I like what you're presenting, in terms of safety. I think the aesthetics of it and the historical aspects and materials it definitely needs to be worked on. Are you suggesting time-wise that there would be like right now, before moving on to the final design, this would be another time for public input? And another time to maybe whittle down? You said so far things have been decreasing. Usually things get added, so I'm interested.
Well,
in
I
this.
mean,
The magnitude of the
Uh,
changes.
Yeah, the magnitude of the changes, like as far as what does the roadway cross section look like? Are we having
Yeah, we're looking.
parking and parking? Those were the major change that were most visible. A lot of these other changes with streetscape elements, and they will be very noticeable and they are very important, but they are to be determined. They have not, you know, that's
So what
all
I'm
in the
asking
process.
is, right now a time before you move into this next phase towards a final design, another public input time?
Of course, we can
Like
make.
this would be
absolutely
presented,
can make
because
that.
I'm thinking, and thinking cost too, that there might be some optional things that get eliminated. Maybe the raised tables, maybe raising that whole length of Lincoln Street and changing the material and the look of it. Maybe people say that we don't care about that, like save a couple $100,000 on that or whatever.
And we can also use that as the first opportunity in dictating the streetscape elements and learning from the public and hearing from the public on those desires as well as the historical.
I'm trying to keep to her
Sorry.
time.
Are you saying, can I just clarify, are you saying that there should be another community meeting before we vote?
Well, no, not necessarily, no, not before.
Okay, okay,
Before
just
they move
checking.
on to this
Because
next
there isn't
stage.
that much time left.
As a landscape architect and site planner and designer, I understand the phasing that you're talking about. And I understand why it would be helpful if we want to try and get significant funding to get through the next stage. And to get through the next stage by December 2026. So just playing devil's advocate to President Laredo's, holding the brakes, I'm thinking maybe it would be a good idea to go do this next stage right now. And to be ready if we can move forward. Now, of course, we're still gonna have to come up with at least $5 million other dollars, and that is a problem for the city council and the citizens and the next mayor. But I like the direction it's going in. In terms of the parking, also, I would love to have a sidebar conversation with you, Stephanie, about permeable materials. We don't need to take up any more time at this meeting with that. I'm gonna give you my card and let's have a chat. The parking, I would guess that they're adding some in because of input from the area council and the local businesses.
It was very.
Even though Councilor Kalis points out, and I know there are other councilors who point out that the more cars we allow in, the more traffic we're creating, so there's that fight. There's that, it's because the businesses there say, no, people can't park, they can't come to us, we can't, yeah, so that's what I'm guessing, so we have to balance those things. I'm personally not opposed to that in this area. I go to this area at least once a week for Tai Chi, and it's very hard to park. So that's all I'm gonna say for now. I can see some advantage of moving on when we have what we need to say, yeah, we're really convinced this is a great way to move forward. You could reallocate the money, but then in a way, this whole $500,000 has been a wasted phase. In a way, it's gonna be another thing that sits on a shelf. Another plan that was half thought through that just sits there that never comes to fruition. And there are lots of other things to do in the city, and paving is certainly one of them, as Shawnahan, we all really know, but.
You could pay Lincoln Street.
Yeah, just simply.
Okay, let's stick to the plan. You said?
Yep.
Okay, Councilor Danberg.
Thank you, and I think we're out of time, we're 1 minute over already. Oh, good, I'd like to send out a fire. Okay, I'm very glad to hear that we can phase this. And by the way, I think I see some very nice items in here that would really enhance the area. I would love to make sure that we keep the look also as much as we can, because this is an old and a historic neighborhood. We love the trees, we love the look of the brick. Everybody would, I think, feel very badly if that fountain were to go away. And if we change the side of the shuttle, does that mean that that fountain would have to move?
No.
The fountain is staying. It's going to be removed and reset.
Okay.
Removed and reset.
It's kept.
We're keeping it. The basin underneath it, we may need to reconstruct. Or there was another option if for a little different idea where you didn't have one and it goes on the pervious pavement, don't have to do that. You could reconstruct the basin at the bottom of it, but the fountain itself is being removed and reset.
Okay. Because of the way buses are constructed and the side that they have their door for the people door for people to get out, if you put it on the other side of the street, would that not dump out into traffic if it were headed north, headed south instead of headed north?
No, it's
Am I
just,
missing
it's
something here?
shifting it onto the other side of the intersection, same direction.
Yeah, so instead of like looking at Lincoln on Walnut, instead of being on the right side of the intersection. it would
I
be
see,
left.
all right, so it's not on the other side of the street, it's on the other
Yeah.
side of the intersection.
You wouldn't dump.
Okay,
people
no,
into
I
it.
thought, well, wait a minute here. Shouldn't be doing this. On the $5 million, if we were hoping to get $5 million from MassWorks, would we be able to, let's say it's we show them that it's a $10 million project. Can we get that 5 million? Or are they gonna say, in order to get the 5 million, you've got to show us that you can make the other 5. Would we have to take 2.5 million and come up with 2.5? How would that work with MassWorks?
I think the question might be more about the strategy. You know, sometimes an application that says that the community is investing X amount of dollars towards it, and we just need this much from MassWorks might be more attractive, or not, or you go for the whole nut. And phase the project out.
Okay, vacuum sweeper. How much is a vacuum sweeper? Does anyone know?
Do we need to know that tonight?
That side, probably a much smaller sweeper,
Okay,
so that we could navigate.
Businesses from them. I mean,
yeah.
it's
So
not, it's not like a new hook and ladder.
So there's also
It's
something.
not a $1 million item.
Do electric, which would be wonderful,
You should
because
have
it's small enough.
Okay, all right. In the interest of time, I'll leave it there since we're not voting on this tonight.
Move to hold the item.
Okay, we have a couple more people that, yeah, Counselor Leary, and then Counselor.
Thank you. I will be brief. I will say that Counselor Kelly's comments, I completely agree with everything you said, including about the parking. Even though there is municipal lot there, the businesses need it because they don't have their own parking, very similar to a lot of our village centers. I think that's absolutely fine. I love this presentation and I love the plan. I love the green infrastructure. I think it's a really nice, wonderful, a lot of big improvements, much more safe for pedestrians. But it looks like it's going to be very expensive. And we have this big budget crunch coming up. And I would vote for it tonight because I'm interested in seeing the next phasing. And I think that's important for us to make decisions. So I don't think we should be saying we're not going to say yes tonight. That's how I look at it, because we want to move ahead. And even though we may not get everything we want, the fountain, I think, is going to have to stay the way it is. I don't see that as a priority. And if it was, I would want to see barriers if people are sitting there, because there's a curb right there. And things can happen with people. It's happened before. The church got their sign taken out. So the limiting fund is a real issue that we would need to figure out and get more information on. And then the last thing is, I think what some people have hesitations with in the past village center redesigns we've done, including Auburndale and West Newton Square, often seemed like they were kind of over mechanized. Like West Newton Square, there's a stop sign every 20 minutes, every 20 inches.
Traffic light.
I mean,
They reduced it, I want to.
they did, okay. Well, it's still difficult, but the main thing is I'd love to see better coordination at the Center Street going under Route 9. That has turned into a nightmare.
This would theoretically improve the flow of traffic
Yes.
through that entire corridor,
Yes.
including the Route 9 intersection, because we can coordinate all of the signals.
And then just my one last question is, I would like to see some data on how much this would reduce the stormwater issue and would help reduce flooding in these areas. That's key for me.
So you'd like to know the phosphorus load reduction and.
Yes.
what it does in
And
terms of
would it actually
flows.
reduce flooding? And I don't know if that's a big flood area actually, but.
It is
But anything
not,
we
but
can-
anything we can do
Right.
to increase our capacity in the entire system is what we want to do, and anywhere that we can put pervious surface
Okay.
is our goal.
As the next stage, as the next part of design,
Yes,
rather than.
and I
being
think we should
answered before.
reconsider the whole. Thank you.
Counselor Bixby. We've been joined by Counselor Bixby, and here she is asking a question.
Thank you, and apologies, I've been in and out. Unfortunately, we didn't have much advance notice of this meeting, so I had to get over to Public Safety and Transportation. But so apologies if I'm reiterating things, but I was grateful to hear my colleagues bring up points about breaking this into pieces here. And I, in particular, would like to see before this next and final design stage, much more clarity about what pieces could be done. Absent other parts or kind of in stages, because it really does seem like, financially and, from the discussion here tonight, that's something the community wants and would probably, be very beneficial for us as we figure out financing. And I think the community in particular has been very interested in safety improvements. So is there a way that we could specifically look at safety improvements as one piece of this?
I feel as if certainly anything is possible. I feel as if the whole configuration, the way that we've shown it so far is really the safety, is really safety focused already. Because we are altering the driver behavior and speeds along these corridors to make it safe for cyclists to share the road with the motorists, unlike now. So I'm not, I would have to put some thought into that as far as what phased approach could we do with safety that would not alter, say, all the curb lines in the project, you know, things like that, and it not turn into a domino effect.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in. I think safety and accessibility go hand in hand here.
Yes.
And accessibility means reconstructing the sidewalks. So like it's like certainly we could value engineer the project to focus solely on those elements, but then it's not that we could go back and add these new materials and make it special from a streetscape perspective. It just would be that pared down version.
And making it, to your point, making it accessible, I don't know what much would be left, you know? That's much of the project right there.
Anything
Okay.
else for Bixby?
No, I mean, just to dig into that, so it seems like then there aren't as much staging that would be possible, or like it is all inextricably tied together, or it would be possible to pull, you know, some of the pieces to kind of look at it. Sorry, I said the word staging a bunch here, but in stages.
I think the phasing would be doing one
Phasing.
portion at a time, not doing the whole project limits, but one element of the project at a time, if that makes sense.
So more like one street area or that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep. Yes.
Interesting. Okay. That's it for me for now. Thanks.
Okay, so before we vote, I just want to make a couple of comments. One of the Newton Highlands residents that I can see on the screen probably almost had a heart attack, it seems, when he heard Councilor Kalis say that we don't need any more parking in Newton Highlands. So I just wanted Councilor Kalis to know that you've made somebody's life very difficult by saying that.
I expected to.
I love the changes in Newtonville. And I don't remember how much that cost. I do remember participating in it, but it.
About 3 million.
What, 3 million?
Oh, no, it was more than
It's a little taller town, you know, things have changed significantly since then, so.
Constructed during.
Whatever it cost, it made a huge
But yeah, those of us who live in Newtonville.
5 to
It made a
6
huge
million.
difference in that village, so,
Yeah.
and the one thing I want to say is that we may be definitely looking towards scheduling an extra meeting if we're gonna hold this tonight. Because we've got a lot of stuff to do between now and the end of December, so if that's okay with everybody, I know Lisa has been working on finding a date that we could all use. So, yes,
Yes, a question
Yes.
about what's the point of holding it if it's gonna be coming back in 2 months or a month?
no, not 2
Is it-
months, no, maybe
Okay,
just
so-
2 weeks, 2
Okay,
weeks.
what's the point of
I think
holding
it's
it?
October 29th was the date that you had, most people had available.
Or I wonder if we could, I mean, maybe people want to hold it. I think I would be willing to vote it, as long as we know that some of the things we've asked tonight will be showing up in the next part. Like, I would wait for, I think President Laredo is not willing to wait for those answers, but I would vote for it tonight. Moving forward, saying, so will the next phase include perhaps design options? Do we get to choose A, B, C? Could that be something that you put into the next part? Can you answer some of the questions that were raised here tonight? If that all comes forward later, I would be fine moving it forward tonight. And it's not just about not having another meeting. You'd be willing to do that too.
What are you gonna vote for tonight? You're gonna vote for the
Approval of this?
This, which we've talked about having significant issues, no funding source whatsoever. We're gonna authorize an additional $500,000 to be spent.
Well, we don't know the funding source, but we know for sure that there'll be no project if we don't vote this through. We know that for
That's not
sure.
true. This can be taken up by the council in 2 months, it can be taken up by the council next term, they can come back to us with a reduced project or broken up into phases.
You wanna,
That's not accurate.
I think that there's granted, it's taken 3 months, 3 years to get us to this point. But there's a certain flow that the project has had and it's ready to move forward. And I for one, am not in favor of breaking it up.
I'd vote for it. I think this is mistaken and I'm personally not prepared to commit the $500,000.
So I think you're a no matter what we do.
I am,
So I hear
am.
that. Are you a no matter what we
But
do?
my problem is that it appeared on the agenda, we didn't get any of this
Yes.
information visually,
Yes.
before the meeting. So I
Yes.
feel as if there's quite a bit to digest still. I also feel as if we haven't gotten a lot of the community input that is needed. I want the residents to speak to this, and I would like to get the slide deck. And I would like to, I know that there were boards that were presented, and I don't know if those are the same boards.
I will provide you with the
Yeah, that
website.
would be great, because I am not ready to vote for it tonight. But I'm just at that point where I sort of feel as if there are a lot of still unanswered questions, for me. And I also, I value being able to sort of definitely hear from the community.
Counselor Danvers?
I was gonna say that I think that if we can get some of the things that have been talked about tonight, and get them by the 29th, we would certainly have more information and I would be I would be all right voting for it tonight with the understanding that we had certain things in order. But I would feel more comfortable if we heard from DPW and from the consultants on some of the issues that have been brought up tonight. Bring it up again on the 29th, and let's see if we can get it voted out by then.
Has this latest version been presented to the Newton Highlands Area Council?
Yes, it is.
This?
No, it was at our community meeting, our open house at Brigham in September.
That's fine.
So
The last one.
I think it's.
Exactly
that's-
like it is now.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you want to hear from the public that, and they, that's fine too. So we can schedule, we can do, I hope everybody's available on the
Go to the
29th.
next stage,
Yeah.
I would absolutely get more reaction.
Right,
And we have a public commentary, we've had public hearings, but could we have a public commentary?
That night?
That night?
The 29th, you're asking for the 29th.
Well, I think it depends on what else we end up with on the agenda, but can we decide that after we see how full the agenda is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I could do the 20.
Yeah.
You're talking the 29th of October.
October.
Yeah.
I think that Lisa gave us a bunch of choices and that was the most popular.
Yeah, I think we all answered.
Okay, Counselor Kalis, are you okay with that?
Yeah, on the 29th, yeah.
And I don't know if we still have Counselor Gentile. But if he's not here, maybe he was here earlier.
He's still on.
Okay, well, we'll just, we'll get as many of us together as we can. So would someone like to move hold?
I'll move on.
No, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstentions? Okay. So you have that? You have that. One no. Thank you very much. It was a great presentation.
Thanks seeing everyone.
Thank you. Okay.
What's happening?
It just ended.
I don't think, I think it's a break for some reason.
They didn't really explain.
Yeah.
Did they just vote on that item, guys?
Yes, they did to hold it.
Uh, hold it, and how many, everybody voted to hold it?
I think it was 7-1.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. I moved my computer just during the time that they decided to take a vote. Good gosh.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
let me read this into the record. Councilors Albright and Getz requesting a discussion with members of the Department of Public Works, requesting a discussion, the areas of Newton flood prone in the 100-year storm, what's the plan? And ask for compliance, an explanation of how projects are reviewed to determine compliance and the like. And this is the second of the two-part series where we learn a lot about stormwater and groundwater and what we're doing about it. So Commissioner Sullivan, you're on.
Good evening. I'm joined by our Deputy Commissioner who stepped out for a moment. Utilities Director Tom Fitzgerald and Associate City Engineer John Dagan in this evening. Tonight we'll be walking you through the new stormwater program, our budget, regulatory framework, phosphorus control plan, local ordinances, and infrastructure improvements. This is a comprehensive update on where we stand and where we're headed. So next slide to these, we went through these and perfect, thank you. Here's what we'll cover, obviously the budget overview, then the regulatory framework that drives our work. We'll go into detail on the phosphorus control plan, review Newton stormwater ordinances and rules, and finally highlight infrastructure improvements underway and planned. Next slide. Here is our stormwater budget. At the federal, this is pretty self-explanatory if you just want to take a look at it. I'm not going to go on too long about it. Next slide. Next slide. At the federal level, we operate under the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, or the NPDES permit. This is part of the Clean Water Act and regulates discharges to U.S. waters to protect water quality. For Newton specifically, we're subject to the Massachusetts MS4 permit, which is a version of NPDES for municipalities. It requires us to manage stormwater runoff, reduce pollutants, and implement best management practices. These two permits set the foundation for everything that we do in the stormwater division. Under the NPDES and MS4 framework, we have several responsibilities beyond both engineering projects. We do public outreach and education, provide erosion and runoff control guidance to contractors, post pollution prevention info is online, and distribute materials on yardways, septic system management, and pest waste disposal. We also maintain a 311 system so residents can report illicit dumping or flooding, and we participate in community events like Earth Day, the Harvest Fair, and Green Expo. This is about engaging the community and making sure stormwater management is a shared responsibility. Next slide. The phosphorus, the NPDES phosphorus control plan. These are just an overview of all the different requirements with the NPDES permit. We just recently submitted for this year. Next slide. Our phosphorus control plan is one of the most pressing challenges is phosphorus reduction, particularly for the Charles River. The EPA has approved a total maximum daily load requirement, and Newton must cut phosphorus discharges by 63%. That's about 5,679 pounds per year by 2038. We're requesting an alternate schedule from the EPA because the requirements are extremely challenging and very costly. But the direction is clear. Phosphorus reduction is one of our biggest compliance obligations. Our permit, next slide. Our permit has interim milestones of 20% reduction by 2026. I think it might be the next slide. Our permit has interim milestones of 20% reduction by 2026, 25% by 2028. To put costs in perspective, industry standards estimate 50,000 to 100,000 per pound of phosphorus removed. For Newton, phase 1 implementation through 2028 is projected to cost around $142 million. We'll pursue both non-structural measures like street sweeping and catch basin cleaning, and structural measures, engineered solutions like filtration basins and wetlands. Retrofitting our stormwater infrastructure will be critical.
Next slide. Next slide. This came up. When we look for retrofit opportunities, we focus on municipal facilities, school projects, streetscape improvements, and places where we can combine community benefits with stormwater improvements. The goal is to align stormwater work with other city priorities and investments. Next slide. So this is a slide of what retrofitting looks like and what the different options are to reduce phosphorus during our projects. Just reviewed how we got there with the municipal facility, the Countryside School, Lincoln Elliott, and Franklin School all have stormwater systems that are designed, I believe, to almost meet the 100-year storm. Next slide. This is a slide of the projected cost for phase one, which I reviewed and spoke to earlier, but it is very expensive. And this is another slide for the full implementation in 2038. We're looking at between 430 million and $575 million.
Stop and talk a little bit about this first.
Say that, yeah.
I'm just sort of thinking we should do this. Can we do that?
I'm happy,
Yeah.
whatever the chair would like.
Do that, yeah,
Yeah,
do this.
I sort of feel like it's easier to, yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
No, it's just this segment, so. She's not looking good.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, okay, so, just even in terms of like the shared responsibility, I think of it as being, because you were, somewhere along the way, I got that it was the leaves, that was actually one of the major issues.
Major issue
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
leaves. We are currently not receiving, I believe, the full credit that we should for our street sweeping. That is something that many municipalities, including Newton, is pushing the EPA to give us a better credit.
Okay, but
Sweeping.
but just educating the public to know that they actually need to pull their leaves off of the street in their
So
zone.
We do that.
Okay, okay, because I sort of feel as if in
We
fact
do
we
it in
can
the.
mitigate early, in terms of not even getting the phosphorus down to, in that picture you had, is there a way to implement, if you go back to one of the slides, that one that was really great that had all of the imagery of all of the.
Lisa, could you go back to what the retrofit options are
This one.
with
Little
Yeah.
houses and.
Yeah.
little houses, the rooftop greenery?
Yes, yeah, so, I sort of see this as the, not even getting to the point where in fact it gets to the river. So that the filtration probably happens at the outfall level. And then, I'm just sort of hopeful that in fact we could intercede so that, we don't even get to the point where the levels are even anywhere near where they potentially could be.
That's the goal.
Okay, so we need to hurry up and figure that out.
We have a plan.
Okay.
We have a full phosphorus plan
Okay,
with over 100 projects.
okay,
We are right now looking at all the feasibility of the projects.
right.
So we have run into things like a groundwater table that's too high to actually put a stormwater basin in, or contaminated soils that we don't want to disturb, obviously.
Okay.
But we have identified a few projects so far that are feasible.
Okay. Okay.
Commissioner, if I could just add quickly, that it's sort of a game, if you look at this, we get points for doing various things, essentially. We're trying to get the name of the game is to get points from the EPA for various projects. I understand it's about protecting water quality in the Charles River downstream, but in the end, it's really about us getting points along the way. So we're trying to get 10 points there and 50 points there and 26 points there and convincing the EPA on some of these that something should really be 10 points and not 1 point. And that's also what we're doing.
Get a Happy Meal?
Well, something like that. And we have fortunately we have an excellent team of consultants at Woodard and Curran who really are helping us and are really the experts in this. And so we're trying to get as much points as we can.
It's like I heard you reading.
Yeah.
And our consultant is working to push the credits for the street sweeping
Right.
and for our catch basin cleaning. That is something we're not getting much credit for at all. And we now have a robust catch basin
Okay,
cleaning program, and we have an exceptional street sweeping program.
great.
It's one of the best in the state, I believe.
Okay, and the only other question I have is where you were going, President Loretta, was just even in terms of the regulatory environment, whether or not the NIPSI is going to be in any way eliminated or, in some way at the federal level.
So we have not had any indication that that is the case.
Yeah, in fact, the EPA recently just fully enacted the regulations on private property. So if you would think that they were gonna back off on all of these regulations in the Charles River watershed,
Okay.
you would think they would have backed off on the regulations on private property, which they did not do. So that may be an indication that that they're not backing off on this whole program. Now, they are very difficult to figure out, so. But that's
a penalty for non-compliance.
Good question. They can put us under, the biggest penalty, I would say, as somebody who lived through it, in MWRA is being under federal court order. And that's really, we don't want to be under a federal court order. I think that's sort of where, that would be the worst case scenario in terms of, there are penalties under the Clean Water Act that we could be assessed if they ever got to that point, but I think at first, they would put us under some kind of order. Yeah.
Could I just ask, do we have enough money with our fees for stormwater to do this?
No.
Not even close.
Okay, so that's a whole other issue there.
There is a whole other issue.
Okay.
We have applied for state funding. We were turned down this round of grant funding, except for an asset management grant. The hope would be that next round of funding that we would be funded.
Okay. $500 million. Who could even imagine?
That is why we are submitting that alternate schedule to spread that cost out and make it more profitable.
I have first Council Leary and then Council Danberg.
Yes, should I have a question about the street sweeping? Like, how do you measure that quantity or quality? And because the reason I'm asking is because I feel like if you don't have street sweeping where you're having cars removed, the street sweeper just goes down the middle of the street. And that happens certainly in Nonantum and other denser areas. So, I mean, you can say you're putting the street sweepers out, but are they actually getting to the edges?
Measure material.
You measure the material?
Yes.
And are you still getting it done even though cars are blocking all of the streets? How does that work?
We're still able to get material. It isn't always, and they do go in and out, they do maneuver between the cars.
Right, but there's never any leaves in the middle of the street. They're all at the edges.
They do go to the edge, they have to go around cars.
Okay, I just
Maybe we need some new parking policies.
That is parking and that's not.
Yeah, the overnight parking, but we could try to get those ahead.
I mean, you can just see where cars are parked and you can see all the stuff there and it doesn't get moved.
I understand that. They're aware we're trying hard to get the cars off the street in Nonantum.
Yeah, well, we
in
have
addition,
in
our
Nonantum,
ordinances-
which is pretty good, but most of Nonantum and most New Corner, other denser areas, of the city, there is no rule around moving your cars during street sweeping.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know, just.
I understand that it would be a change to the TPRs.
Okay.
Happy to support that.
On the page, on this page, the one with the arrows, Dedham and Newton. Dedham are the two towns that I know have a lot of access to the Charles River. Why is there such a difference between Dedham and Newton?
Dedham is only really one side of Dedham that's touched. The city of Newton is bordered by three sides by the Charles River.
Yeah.
So it is actually the river meanders through Newton, as you're aware, and
that is why. Do they charge by the number of outfalls or the linear mileage of riverfront? It's, I believe, the riverfront.
Yeah, they have a very complicated system.
yeah.
And also Dedham is smaller than us. Newton is,
We're large.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, should we go on?
can I go to stormwater now?
Whatever was next.
It was the stormwater
Okay.
ordinance rules and regulations. So Newton also has a strong local ordinance that complements state and federal requirements. For example, our floodplain and wetlands ordinance requires that projects and map floodplains demonstrate no increase in flood events, flood levels during a 100-year storm, and provide compensatory storage. Our stormwater rules and regulations require compliance with state standards, including analysis of the 2, 10, and 100-year design forms. This ensures developments are resilient and do not increase flooding. Together, these ordinances put Newton ahead of many other communities in terms of resilience planning. Next. Permitting benefits, we modernize our permitting with the new Gov software platform. This allows us to track compliance, support MS4 annual reporting, and formalize reviews and inspections. We also establish fees for land disturbance and stormwater permits, which helps offset the program costs, and we put in place clear enforcement procedures. Next slide. This is additional information on our stormwater permitting information. We have over 570 private parcels in the database. This ordinance was passed in 2022, so we are actually growing our database. Next slide. This is the stormwater infrastructure improvements. To plan for the long term, we're developing a stormwater asset management plan. This includes building a full inventory of our stormwater system, conducting condition assessments, updating GIS data, and completing a 20-year capital improvement plan. This is a more detailed look. We have ongoing projects that include the Bowles Pond Dam rehabilitation, drainage work at Edmonds Park, stream maintenance on Han Brook, Cheesecake Brook, and Edmonds Brook. Flooding fixes at Blake Street, South Meadow Brook, Quinnipiac Road, and Beaconwood Road. Upcoming projects. This is a mix of long-term resilience and immediate fixes where residents feel the impact most. These are some of our upcoming CIP projects. They include the phosphorus control and plan investigation and design of Cold Spring Park rain and garden wetlands to reduce phosphorus in that area. Edmund Park's drainage basin, designed for flood mitigation and phosphorus control. Cheesecake Brook improvements, including a hydrological analysis, which will help us with the Border Street flooding. The Laundry Brook culvert rehabilitation from Hull Street to Bridges Avenue and Parkview to Mass Pike. South Meadow Brook culvert and Needham Street inspection and rehabilitation. These are all included in the most recent capital improvement plan. To sum up, Newton faces significant obligations under federal and state permits, especially with phosphorus reduction. The costs are high, but our ordinances, asset management planning, and ongoing infrastructure work gets us on a strong path. We're committed to protecting our residents, infrastructure, and natural resources. We'll be happy to take any of your questions. It's a lot.
Yeah.
That's why I gave you all the hands up.
Which through it, that was good. Okay, well, we had a bunch of questions from the last time. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Councilor
the one that I was
Gaspar.
interested in is the Border Street, is there somebody what is the dollar amount, and I think it was to justify to the NWRA their intervention?
It's about 350,000 was set aside in the capital improvement
Okay.
plan for that analysis.
Okay, and that's ongoing right now?
I will be docketing it on Friday.
Okay.
It was included in this capital improvement year, so I haven't docketed yet. I will do that on Friday.
Yeah, okay. So one question that it's come up is, so there are all kinds of projects that come in, some by special permit and some by right. And how do we decide what's the review process, the stormwater review process for those, and how do we decide when things can go into the city's stormwater infrastructure and when they can't?
I'm gonna let John Daglian, who reviews all of the major projects, answer that question.
So we use the same standard for special permit projects, administrative site plans, conservation commission, building permits by right. It's to meet the 100-year storm event to make sure that there's no impact on any water or any street. So when we get a set of plans, we do a field visit, we go to the site. If it's a large project, we try to meet with the neighbors as they see us in the property. We ask them, have you had any localized flooding? Do you have any problems with any issues with runoff coming into your property? And most of the times they're willing to talk to us. Sometimes they say, we're out of the time, or we'll get some information on it. And then we go through a whole analysis like the consultant provides. We go through all the data. We do our own hand calcs to verify that their numbers are accurately correct. And we check their watershed maps pre and post. So we check it for volume and rate to make sure that there's no increase in any budget or the city system. So we use the same standard for every project.
So when, I know our ordinance allows people to go into the city's infrastructure if they need to.
Right.
So how do you decide what's right and what's wrong about that? How do you decide if it's a good thing or a bad thing to do that?
So it's all based on capacity of the system. So, for example, if one property cannot infiltrate to the maximum extent, and you did an overflow connection, we make them do a closed circuit TV inspection of the pipe from the upstream manhole to the downstream manhole to make sure there's no damage in the pipe. You see where the water line historically has been. Typically 9 out of 10 times in the city, we have a picture of pipe cross section. You'll see the water stains up in there, so we know we have capacity in the pipe. But we also ask them to do a 10-year analysis on the pipe itself based on the 10-year storm event with the additional flow that they're putting in and the watershed that's contributing to that the basin. Once we confirm those numbers are accurate and there's not going to be an impact, we allow the overflow connection.
Okay, and so so it's based on capacity. If we have capacity, you allow it.
Yes.
If we don't have capacity, you don't allow it.
That's correct. And it's been like that ever since I've started, and I've been waiting before I even started, and that's going back about 25 years ago.
So I have questions here that from our last meeting, if you want me to, I'll go on unless somebody else wants.
Go ahead.
So there was a question raised about, like, for instance, the Oak Hill Park. We're allowing people to put in basements and they clearly have a groundwater problem there. So should we be allowing, if the groundwater isn't regulated other than by Mass DEP, is there anything we should do with our water ordinance to keep groundwater on site? And why are we allowing, the question was, why are we allowing basements in where there's a groundwater problem?
So,
Hold on, I think I can answer that. The zoning ordinances currently allow it. Our stormwater ordinance is fairly new. It's 2022. Most of the properties in Oak Hill were developed before the stormwater ordinance was in
We have
effect.
that now.
You have to pass, you have to do the printer.
So the new houses going in since the stormwater ordinance would not be allowed to put basements?
It would depend on the
Analysis.
groundwater testing analysis.
Jennifer Steele talked about the ability to put them on stilts.
Yes, she did.
Do we even consider that?
That's in our zoning.
It's a zoning.
This is,
The only issue, I'm sorry.
Councilor Kalis?
so this is, I wasn't even gonna ask a question because we're talking about stormwater. Groundwater is completely different.
Different.
And so that's the real issue. We don't have anything around groundwater. And that's what the problem in Oak Hill Park is. So Mr. Daglian's doing a great job at stormwater, but it's the groundwater that is in both Ward 5, there's issues, Ward 8, there's issues, and other areas, there's issues.
Well, doesn't it address, Sean, I'm sorry, it does address it because of the high water level.
It does address
It has to be 2 feet under the basement.
Yes,
So it does address it now with the new stormwater.
it does. It's not as comprehensive. It's something that everyone could look at, maybe more comprehensive, but right now it does address it because we do have to do the printer method groundwater test.
Right.
Council Wright? Wait a minute, you need to unmute it.
Unmute.
Yep.
Thank you. Actually, just to answer David's question, there's a house that was just built in West Newton that's on stilts along the Cheesecake Brook. So they are building houses on stilts. A question about the hydrological analysis in Cheesecake Brook. You're saying you're going to docket it soon. When do you think we'll have that done?
As soon as we have approval, we will hire the consultant to do the analysis.
Yeah, but does it take 6 months, a year, 18 months? I have no idea.
Tom?
I didn't get a timeline on it.
We can probably get you a timeline.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Council Leary?
Oh, thank you. Oh, just going back to the question about rule, Mr. Dagny, the rule about, it's all about capacity. I'm wondering, should we think about that differently? Because we're putting increasing amounts of untreated stormwater into the Charles River, essentially, right? I mean, that's going up and up and up, even though we were allowing it. And I can understand under some instances we should, but I wonder if there are ways that we could think about it differently and actually really require much more strict rules around keeping more stormwater on site. And maybe there are some areas that shouldn't be built on or developed based on those rules. Because when we first did the stormwater review, redo back in 2022, that was one of the big things we were talking about, is that we wanted to keep stormwater on site rather than had additional flow, even if we had the capacity to do so. And you want that capacity if you have like a very significant storm, which we eventually will get, which will really test our whole system, because we know our stormwater system will not, nobody's will. If we have a very severe weather event, precipitation, we will flood. It's just a question about how much. So that's one thing I want to talk about. And then I did want to touch on the Edmonds Park drainage project, and because that is a park that I think has a lot of opportunity or potential, but it's so eroded and degraded, and there's so many invasives there. And actually improving the quality of the park would make a huge difference. And I understand that's costing big money. So
And it's also Parks and Rec that we would need to partner with, and I have no problem doing that. It is cost prohibitive. We would be using stormwater funding to do the stormwater infrastructure. We would probably have to identify other funding for park improvement.
I totally understand that. And then the same with the Laundry Brook culvert. I kind of want it, I go by that culvert quite a bit where it dumps into the Charles River, just east of the Newton Yacht Club. And it's always polluted. There's oil coming out of there. There's styrofoam, plastic. There is a boom sometimes. I never have gotten a straight answer on who actually manages that boom or what happens if you see. The one time when I saw a lot of oil, I called the fire department and they
came down.
And that they're like the only people that can do that. But is this culvert program going to help reduce the amount of, is there any way to catch those debris, the oil, the Mass, if there's an accident on the Mass Pike, you get oil in that. How can we
can investigate that. I believe the boom's owned by DCR, but we can of course investigate that.
Okay. Well, those are and I don't expect full answers now, but I would like to talk more about those two projects. And later on, the whole capacity issue, I think, is a discussion in its own. So thank you.
Commissioner, just in terms of quality, answering Allison's question here. The increased amount of catch basin cleaning that we're going to be doing, as well as infiltrating more our stormwater, like the water that's coming out, will be coming off of Craft Street underneath the Albemarle Field is a good example. That's all gonna be treated in the ground. We are improving water quality in the Charles River by all of these projects, whether it's smaller green infrastructure we're doing, these bigger things like the Albemarle thing, which was a really large project, or catch basin cleaning, the operational stuff. There's lots of things we are doing that are actually improving water quality.
Oh, absolutely. I
Getting
think
into the Charles River.
that's true.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to.
Counselor Leary has a point because that
booms,
is.
The booms usually are state or they're due to the responsible party being required by state law to put the booms in for a certain period of time after an accident, like an accident on the Mass Pike, for example, where something might potentially get into a storm drain that gets to the Charles River. They're then required to go put booms down on the river. For some
I
period of
understand
time.
that, it just seems like they're
I agree.
really not much.
You know, if you look at what comes out of, into the river, it is still not a pretty sight. I agree.
You can go on the river,
So-
do that.
So it sounds like there's two components of this. One is kind of the annual maintenance efforts with the catch basins, street sweeping, all of that. The other is more capital infrastructure work.
Yes, so operational.
So are we adequately funding right now the maintenance work?
Yes,
Okay.
we are in a good place to me.
So you have
Catch basin.
you have a comfort level that the catch basin cleaning, that the street sweeping, subject to the issues that Councilor Leary raised, that's all where we want to be.
I should have probably added this to my presentation. We actually this year got $500,000 in stream cleaning that wasn't in our budget before, and we increased our catch basin line item funding. So we are in a good.
So if we gave you, if you had another $1 million, it would not go to the maintenance efforts.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we have any kind of master plan for what we're going to do for the stormwater in order?
So we just got a grant and one is pending to develop a full stormwater infrastructure improvement plan that will provide guidance for probably 20 years, I believe is the chart, a capital improvement plan.
When do you think that plan's gonna be ready?
So it's April of 27.
It's April of 27.
16 to 18 month long process.
And that money goes out to a private consultant that's gonna come up with the plan?
With some substantial in-house efforts.
Stormwater assessment, I believe the dates are in there.
Yeah.
March 31st.
March
Okay, yeah.
31, but there'll also be additional 250,000 going towards this plan, just know
So that plan will be in place, that plan will presumably have an order of priority.
Yes.
And will cover everything from Edmonds Park to Cold Spring Park, to culverts, to everything like that, and then. We obviously gonna need a lot more money, how much do we think it's gonna cost, do we have any idea?
I do not, it will be a significant investment over 20 years. It will probably be very similar to our capital improvement programs for water and sewer.
That's what I was gonna ask
It
you
would
next,
be
it sounds
something
like
like
it's very similar, well, that's very promising, it seems to me that's absolutely the way to go. I presume we may have to fund that, at least in part, by raising the stormwater fee potentially significantly.
I would think so.
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
Also know that the phosphorus projects will also tie into this because it will improve stormwater quality and reduce flooding. It does provide some mitigation, these projects, so do know that.
but they're
They're two different things,
different,
but-
one is our, the culverts, Edmonds Park, all those things, and the other is getting rid of phosphorus, and they're interrelated, but
They're
they're
related,
different.
but they're different.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
So there's a relationship, but if they're different, but there's a relationship.
There is a relationship in terms of flooding, flood mitigation.
And in terms of the 20-year plan, are we going towards the 100-year storm? Are we going to the 25-year storm? Do we have an idea of what we're doing?
Well,
Assessing our existing structures and infrastructure. Identifying what needs to be repaired, replaced, or upgraded.
Yeah, so
Come out of this place.
if I could, then just one quick thing, Brookline is doing this, something very similar right now. And our alumni Maria Rose is involved in it over there. And what they're focusing on, they're looking at flooding areas and they're looking at their infrastructure and they're focusing on those 20 and 25-year storms, which are really the design storms, which are the ones you really look at. You have your nuisance storms, your 5-year storms that cause problems and flooding. You've got your 20 and 25 years storms, which cause pretty significant damage. The 100-year storms are going to almost be impossible for any community to fully plan for and mitigate. There's certain things you're going to do to deal with the 20 and 25-year storm that are going to help you in terms of the 100-year. But it is, given that this is a developed city and we have many, many thousands of homes in low-lying areas, we are not going to be able to prevent, damage. We're trying to keep down expectations here. That we're not going to be able to prevent damage during such a colossal storm. But, we're hopeful that we have a lot of old infrastructure. We think we have opportunities to make improvements in different parts of the city. And that's really what this project is going to be all about.
Okay, so it seems like we're heading towards the 5 and 2025.
Yeah.
We are in
Storm, and there must be areas of the city that are higher priority than other areas of the city.
There are low-lying areas of the city near streams, and so we're focusing, like stream cleaning is a good example, down near David's house. We went and cleared out along the stream there, cleared out behind the school.
Countryside.
Yeah, behind Countryside. Yeah, behind Andrews Road. And so those are the kinds of things we're gonna be prioritizing in these low-lying areas and where there are known problems. Right now, Shauna has, they have a priority list, a hotspot list. There was a map up there.
We do have a priority.
So they're trying to make sure that these low-lying areas, including in front of my house, but many other people's homes, that those catch basins are swept before storms. And that there's cleaning on a regular basis. We're gonna be doing every catch basin every year now, which is going to be a big improvement from, where we've been in the past. So we're trying to make operational and capital investment improvements to get us into the city into a better place. There's no way we're ever going to be able to ride out unscathed such a massive storm without damage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, I want to add, one of the most important things is to remove impervious area where we can.
Right.
Which we always look at when we pave. If we do bump outs, we want to do grass. We don't want to do any more impervious surface. Need to get away from that.
So that was my final question, which was, this issue of what's pervious and what's impervious. And we've heard that impervious pavers have an issue. Tonight we heard, no, they're fine, they work. So I'm confused about what works in a storm and what doesn't.
Happy to talk to that. Pervious pavers are great, but you have to maintain them. If you do not vacuum sweep them and get the grit out, they're then impervious after.
So even pervious concrete that they talked about tonight?
You have to sweep it
You have
and
to sweep
vacuum
it.
sweep it.
Okay.
We vacuum sweep the library, the perimeter of the library every week.
Okay.
To ensure that, yeah.
Even packed soil can be impervious.
Yes. You have to maintain that filter component.
So do we know, can an individual who has a home, can they afford to do that? The machine that does that for homeowners?
You just cut back on the leaf blowing and they can do it.
Okay, so, okay.
I'm gonna talk further with that Stephanie about this, as we try to make a definition
Okay.
for our use for city council and special permits, but yes.
I just have a quick question.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering, John, about Border Street. That was kind of a hot spot and it's sort of and I knew there was an issue there with MWRA, and I just wondered, has that been resolved at all?
No, that still remains.
That still remains. Are there any?
We've improved drainage there when we redid the roadway. So we were able to create a better crown and better drainage of the street.
So that, but is that MWR pipe still a big barrier to really?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So
that's
part of-
Part of the
Is there any
ecological study.
comment on that?
That's part of the reason why we're doing this study. We
Study.
feel that we're gonna need to really prove this. Is it's, you know, I think there's some doubt as to whether it's really a constriction at this point, but I think if we can prove it, we're gonna need to
Go for it.
go to our friends at MWRA and say, hey, we got a big problem here.
You
So,
need to help us with this.
Have we started that process?
Yes.
That's what we're starting the process of doing this study, yeah.
It's in there.
Council Wright has her hand raised.
Okay.
Just a quick question. The city's doing a lot on our own property. I thought Waltham and Watertown requires private development to contain a 100-year storm. And they're requiring all new projects to do that. Isn't that correct?
I don't think retain, I think in that, analyze.
Well, let's find out. Was it Waltham and where?
Watertown, she said.
I did a quick overview of our surrounding communities. Newton, Boston, and Cambridge align, and they're probably the strongest stormwater ordinances around.
And what about Waltham and Watertown? They're not as strong as Newton? I thought they were much stronger.
No, according to research, no, unless they've made very recent changes.
Okay.
I'm happy to relook into that.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
That's a question about Bullows. Was the overtopping of Bullows, was that in the 100-year storm?
Yes.
Oh, so that was a 100-year storm that you did with all that flooding? Okay. And if whatever infrastructure improvements that would be made, they would be made for a 20 to 25-year storm.
Right.
Not for the 100-year storm.
The dam has special state and federal requirements that are different from really what we're talking about here, so that's sort of in its own category.
Okay,
But it's
yeah, no, I
for
just
us.
like that about the
Yeah.
dam itself. Okay, have we run out of?
Want to end this
Yeah,
because it's the end of the term?
I think we should,
yeah, well, it's a discussion item too, right?
yeah.
I'll move to no action necessary, but thank you for the presentation.
Yes,
Really.
thank you.
For all of you saying so, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, this is-
Thank you
this
so
is-
much.
And we'll be back with additional, obviously the docket item for the hydrological study and analysis, and then the regular stormwater presentation.
Okay, good. So we just need to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay, we're done.
Not as late as.
Thank you all. Aye.
That's nice, I don't know.
Recording stopped.